Good morning, honorable members and our officials in the department.
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair.
Morning, Honorable Bapti. Can we start our meeting? Ariko?
We can proceed, Chair. We are quorum.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning once more. And the meeting is officially opened.
Recording in progress.
I also want to really welcome everybody who has managed to join the meeting. And as the secretary is saying that the meeting has got the quorum. Now, we are not going to even waste time today, though I think we don't have a lot in our agenda. But I also want to say to the department, they have to give us the information that they prepared, and so that they can be able to assist us in bringing that information. Can I request the secretary to flight the agenda?
There you go, Chair.
Can you lead us, Secretary, the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. So we'll be receiving a briefing by the Department of Electricity and Energy on the load reduction strategy. Yeah, that's it for today. The only item, Chair. You will also see that, Chair, that I've allocated 10 minutes to each member for questions and responses from the DEE. And then there's also 3 minutes each to every member for follow-up, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Now that it is only the item that we're going to deal with it, I don't have a problem in putting that in the agenda. But in future, there is no need for it to put it in the agenda so that I can be given a discretion on how do I want to share. Otherwise, thanks ever so much. Can I get anyone who's going to adopt the agenda as it has been put? Do you have any apologies, Secretary, before that, so that we can combine them?
Yeah, I do, Chair. I haven't received any apology from any of the committee members, but we did receive the following apologies, Chair, from the Minister of Electricity and Energy, Honorable Ramagopa, who is currently participating in the Windaba, and then he'll also be attending Cabinet Committees, Chair. Also, apology from the Deputy Minister, who's attending Cabinet Committee meetings. And then also an apology from the Acting DG, who is participating at the Windaba, Chair. But the delegation from the DEE is led by the DDG, Dr. Bugwandin. So that's it, Chair. Those are the apologies received.
Okay. Thank you very much, Secretary. You have also covered the honorable members and the officials. So thanks for just combining all those. Can I get the honorable member's hand so that I can see from the gadget who is adopting the agenda and also who is also accepting the apologies? Honorable Ngosi?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to you and honorable members and the department. I would like Honorable Chair to propose to accept the apologies and also propose adoption of the agenda. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ngosi. Honorable the seconder, Honorable Fasia.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second the motion to adopt.
To adopt and accept the message, the apologies. Thank you very much. The agenda has been adopted and also the minutes has been accepted. Since the minister is not present and also the DM is not present, can we just go straight to the department so that we can be able to achieve these 10 minutes and 3 minutes of the follow-up questions?
Chair, I see Mr. Nchabileng's hand is raised.
Okay. Honorable
Mr. Nchabileng.
Honorable Nchabileng.
Unmute, Mr. Nchabileng.
Oh, thanks a lot, Secretary. Was I audible earlier?
No.
Oh, okay, fine. I wanted to adopt the agenda and accept the apologies, but I see that I didn't get the chance. It's fine. Thank you so much. That was my contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Nchabileng. It has been adopted by Honorable Nkosi, and the acceptance of the apologies as presented and also seconded by Honorable Fasia. Thanks ever so much, Honorable Nchabileng. I know this challenge of sometimes you think you are audible, but you are not. Thanks ever so much. Over to you, Department.
Good morning, Chairperson. This is Kubeshni Bagwandin. Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, you are audible.
All right. Okay. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson Mvana. Good morning, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. I'm Kubeshni Bagwandin, and I will be leading the discussion today on the implementation plan to eliminate load reduction. Load reduction is a proactive approach used by Eskom and utilities globally to manage electricity consumption, particularly during periods of high demand, like your morning and evening peaks. And this is a last resort measure to protect the network equipment like transformers and cables, as well as human life. For example, burning equipment can pose harm to people. Chairperson, we'll now take you through the presentation where we will go through the plan for elimination of load reduction, and we will also highlight the quantitative aspects of the problem and the solution that the department will be putting forward. I will now hand over to my colleague Colin Reddy to take us through the details of the presentation. Over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Kubashni, and good morning to the honorable members. I will take you through our submission and then hand it back to Kubashni. As indicated, I think load shedding is, as our minister has indicated previously in the media briefing on the 25th of September, as Eskom, we've moved beyond a phase of national or large-scale load shedding, and we are now focusing our attention in terms of the next frontier, and this being load reduction. Load reduction, of course, or the national supply crisis is no longer our dominant headache. I think our key challenge today is in terms of focusing on the integrity of the local networks, and these are the distribution feeders downstream, the local networks in terms of feeder level, the transformers itself, and other equipment associated with this. So load reduction is a necessary when we have a specific feeder or transformer that becomes overloaded due to illegal bypasses, metering tampering, theft, or vandalism. And it's really an excessive load or demand that is put on the transformer that risks the transformer or other equipment in terms of being or failing. In some cases, it certainly creates permanent damage. It creates a fire risk. And key to this is in terms of the introduction of load reduction is to prevent permanent damage or the fire risk. And the idea is that we disconnect at a local level in terms of preventing these failures. As per the submission itself in terms of our presentation, over a one-year period, we've had just over 771 transformer failures. So by the introduction of load reduction in terms of trying to prevent more of these failures, we've then implemented load reduction over 971 feeders across the country, which has then impacted on 1.6 million customers. Of course, key to this is that it has an impact in terms of the communities that we are supplying. So most communities, irrespective of whether we call it load reduction or load shedding, experiencing not having power during the morning period or the afternoon period. And this is normally in terms of what we refer to as the peak periods itself. And it's generally common in terms of where during these peak periods that the most amount of energy is drawn from these equipment, which then stresses these equipment from this particular, or this stresses the equipment during these periods, which then results in premature failure of the equipment itself. So the introduction of load reduction really has an impact, and we do understand it has made disruptions to the lives of our communities that we want to actually serve. Of course, it has the issue in terms of social, economic, and safety risk. I think when we talk about the social impact, it disrupts the ability of our young students in terms of studying, getting ready for exam, having the ability to research, like some of the other communities might be in more urban areas that are not impacted by load reduction itself. So it impacts in terms of the ability and the prospects for proper academic achievements itself. From an economic point of view, the load reduction impacts small businesses that rely on uninterrupted supply. So it really constrains these small businesses in terms of, in some cases, they prepare meals very early in the morning that they would like to sell to other members of the communities. And when they don't have this power, they are unable to then participate in the economic activities, and certainly these constraints then have that impact. Of course, the issues around safety, like highlighted by Kubeshni, we have wires that are exposed, we have the risk of electrocution, and certainly the risk of fire. So the intention basically is that between the ministry and certainly ESCOM, our intention is to end load reduction by 2027. And in doing that, we've looked in terms of how it's a multi-pronged approach. One is to really look in terms of increasing the free basic electricity, or getting communities to participate in terms of the free basic electricity itself. So when the country and the government started in terms of providing free basic electricity in the early 2000s, we started with 50 kilowatt hours. And I think we've seen basically the penetration of new technology in terms of people having televisions, in terms of having cell phones, etc. So the need for those indigent communities have increased. And in terms of our calculations that we have done, we believe that in terms of the low-income communities that we need to serve, that we need to move from about 50 to between 150 to 200 kilowatt hours. And part of that is then for the department, together with COCTEF, SALGA, and National Treasury, in reviewing the framework around free basic electricity itself, but also to increase our indigent, even with the 50 kilowatts. We actually noticed within the ESCOM area of supply that we have a potential of 2.1 million customers that need the free basic electricity, but currently we're just providing 485,000 of this potential 2.1 million customers with free basic electricity itself. So the poor registration of qualifying indigent households feel this inconsistent provision of the free basic electricity. Of course, this leads to affordability issues and some of these unsafe practices that we see in our communities that we want to serve. The second is the issue around smart meters and providing the smart meters to all of those communities that we would like to actually see have electricity and eliminate the load reduction itself. So this technology provides us the ability to see what is being consumed at different transformer zones and making the LV network or the low voltage network visible to ourselves and the municipalities. But the smart meters also provides two-way communication. So consumers will be able to see what they're consuming while also then providing ESCOM with the ability to look at a granular level what is happening at a feeder level or a transformer zone level, so that we have the ability to isolate. So the smart meters provide us with the technical agility in terms of managing and monitoring the networks. In addition to that, the issue around distributed energy resources helps us in terms of addressing areas where we have constrained networks, and our ability to then provide universal access to all of the South Africans by deploying the distributed energy resources. We don't have to rely on traditional ways in terms of where we now need to build in transmission infrastructure, distribution infrastructure, and then the reticulation infrastructure to then provide the universal access to those communities that we need to serve. So the deployment of the DEHARs will help us in terms of eliminating this. But of course, these, in terms of providing the universal access, it does have some of the challenges where we do have, for example, illegal land that is occupied by these communities, and there are land disputes. So in terms of providing these services, it becomes difficult for us to be able to then provide some of these things itself. So in terms of us then, if we can just go to the next slide, sorry. In terms of us then addressing the issues around eliminating the load reduction itself, we see that the load reduction is not just in one particular province, but certainly spread across all of the provinces within our country. But we do notice that in terms of 3 of the provinces itself, it is 80% predominant within those 3 provinces. And if we look at, including KZN, then we say that in these 4 provinces, 95% of the load reduction takes place in these 4 provinces, starting with Gauteng being at 38%, then followed by 21% in terms of Limpopo, and then 20% in Mpumalanga, and then 18% in terms of KZN. And then the other provinces are negligible in terms of 2% and 1%, etc. I think in the same manner, we've seen an orchestrated resolution in terms of the load shedding and how we've been able to turn around or turn the corner. We want to do the similar around load reduction. We are looking at
Good.
Kubashni. We are looking at a methodical manner and a calculated manner in terms of addressing the issues around load reduction itself. I think there is this misconception that Eskom is using the load reduction in addressing the issues around load shedding itself. And I think I want to demonstrate by the submission that currently, in terms of those 971 feeders that are impacted by load reduction, they cumulatively had up to 529 megawatts and impacting, like I've indicated, 1.69 million customers. But currently, at a point in time, when we did this submission itself, our demand this was around the 24th of September, was just over 20,000 gigawatt hours, but our capacity in terms of being able to generate was around 28 gigawatt hours itself. And so we had a surplus of just over 8,000 gigawatt hours in terms of us being able to supply at the national level. So therefore, we indicate that load reduction is not necessarily a load shedding in a disguise, but it is really a localized issue in terms of where there are issues around the particular feeders itself. So Eskom certainly has enough and sufficient capacity in terms of being able to supply at a national level, like we've indicated that we have turned the corner. Of course, during different periods of time, as we go towards the day, the demand actually changes. And of course, then our capacity, our current capacity or the surplus capacity changes itself. So as an example, last night around 8 o'clock, we had the demand was roughly around 25 gigawatts, and we had a generation capacity of just over 28 gigawatts. So we had a surplus capacity of roughly 3 gigawatts that was available. At about 1 o'clock this morning, the demand changed to about 18 gigawatt hours, and our surplus capacity then became roughly about 11 gigawatt hours. So the surplus capacity changes as the demand during the day actually changes itself. And again, that's why the load reduction in terms of local demand, irrespective of the capacity at the national level, the demand is normally during the peak periods. So the protection of the equipment takes place during those peak periods itself. I think we've indicated that 90% of these 1.6 million of the 7.2 million customers that are within the Eskom area of supply are on the prepaid area. And I think in the context of our country, yes, we do see that this might be reflecting as some sort of discrimination, but I think the dispersion of our customers within the country, this is really a reflection of that dispersion itself within the country itself. So our intention is, in terms of this program of elimination by 2027, is we're looking at 3 phases in that elimination. If we can just go to the next slide itself. Just one back, please. Is to follow this 3-prong or multi-prong approach. One is in terms of then ensuring that in terms of phase 1, like I've indicated, the 2.1 million customers that are entitled to free basic electricity, albeit at 50 kilowatt hours, that we need to just make sure that we update the indigent register and provide those communities with that 50 kilowatts of free basic electricity. And phase two is then in terms of looking at reviewing that free basic electricity framework. So I think key for us is that to build and maintain a verified indigent register within each municipality so that we can actually accelerate the rollout of free basic electricity to all qualifying households. In terms of the smart meters, like I've indicated, the smart meters provides us with real-time data. They ensure the issues around addressing tamper-proof or tamper detection. It allows us to do remote disconnection and reconnection and load limiting features itself. And I think this makes it visible where we're now switching off feeders for both paying and non-paying customers, for those customers that are or issues around malfeasance within that transformer zone. With the smart meters, it allows us to address specific customers that might have acquired vouchers for prepaid illegally, and then allow us to address the load reduction in a more controlled manner specific to those customers that might be committing malfeasance within those specific areas itself. So I think it helps us in terms of prioritizing feeders that are identified as load reduction risk feeders and then addressing specific customers. I think the integration of smart meters via our smart meter operation center will allow us to monitor and respond to these abnormal loads or the tampering itself. We need to support these by our processes and our resources so that when we see an alarm coming from these smart meters itself, that we can send out technicians to then go and address any abnormalities or tampering itself. And so our focus is really in terms of this 1.6 million smart meters in the IRIS feeders by March 2027. In addition to that, like I've highlighted, in terms of trying to strengthen or upgrade our networks and support our communities via the distributed energy resources, I think where it is appropriate to support those networks and upgrade those networks, we will upgrade those networks, but where we can use technology in terms of these PVs or solar PVs or microgrids, we will use those to complement our existing networks in terms of then providing or addressing the local economy, energy ecosystems around these itself. I think, again, the emphasis must be that where we have or where people can afford electricity and they are not indigent, we must have this emphasis on zero tolerance towards the approach of theft, vandalism, or illegal connections itself. And we will be supporting these by changing our processes and providing resources by increasing patrolling, having partnerships with our communities, with municipalities, improving our intelligence itself, and then addressing offenders. I think key to this is, of course, public awareness campaigns so that we can protect these transformers, the lines, and our substations to ensure that we can actually address or provide the services we want. I think the DERs will also allow us to provide towards the essential services like schools, like clinics, like police stations, etc. If we can then go to the next slide. So our overall strategy is really in terms of doing a phased approach. So in terms of the 1.69 million consumers we have across the country that are impacted by the load shedding, our intention is by March 2026, which is the ESCOM financial year end, we would have addressed 577,000 of these 1.69 million customers. Then by September 2026, we would have addressed an additional 560,000 customers, so taking us over just over the 1.1 million. And then the last phase is actually by March 2027 that we would have then addressed the balance of those that are impacted by load shedding. But you would notice in terms of this particular table that those areas that are less than the 2%, by March 2026, we should technically get them to zero. So it is really going to be the 4 provinces that I've highlighted earlier, being Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo, that would still be impacted by load reduction. And as part of then this strategy, we would then address them. We do have, and I will provide a detailed plan by way of example for the granular details in terms of how we're then going to address each of these provinces itself. I think the key aspect is if we don't address the issues around the impact of the illegal connections to the transformer zones, the issue around ghost vending, the issue about the theft, etc., we are going to see an increase in terms of theft. We've seen in our last financial report that Eskom reported in terms of non-technical losses, a 14.7 terawatt hour loss in terms of energy losses or non-technical losses. I think when we look at a revenue perspective, that equates to over 30 billion rands in terms of revenue loss to Eskom. Of course, the cost of producing that is slightly different to the revenue loss itself. So the cost would be around 7 to 8 billion rand versus the revenue loss. I think the aspect of not doing anything is going to result in us increasing the cost of non-technical losses, increasing the wastage in terms of where generation produces this energy, but it is not paid for. Whereas if we can actually recover this cost, and if we can address the issues about damaged equipment, etc., we can use that revenue to improve the services that we do provide to our communities itself. So if we can go to the next slide, we will show you pictorially how we're then going to address the load reduction via the introduction of smart meters and DERs itself. So if we look in terms of the top left-hand corner itself, that is what we currently have. And I'm going to use Limpopo as an example, which shows that currently 21% of the 1.6 or 1.7 million customers are in Limpopo. So by March 2026, we would move from 21% to 13% of customers that are impacted by load reduction. Then by September 2026, Limpopo would move from the 13% to 7%, and then by March 2027 to 0%. Of course, all of these are reliant in terms of cooperation between ourselves, COCTA, SALGA, municipalities, DEE, and most importantly, the communities where we would like to improve our service and eliminate the load reduction. If we do have problems in terms of where there is resistance in terms of the technology that we would like to introduce in eliminating load reduction, it will certainly impact in terms of the strategy and the phased approach that we would like to do in addressing the issues around equipment failure, zero bias, and load reduction itself. So if I can show by way of example, if we can just go to the next slide. This then is an example in terms of each of the provinces where we have the granular detail in addressing the load reduction or eliminating the load reduction by 2027. So if I look in terms of this particular example, which is reflecting KwaZulu-Natal. And if I look as an example at Matuba, the network breaker 422 kV network, we say that there are 2,250 prepaid customers that are impacted on this network itself. And this network is in terms of ward number 4 and number 5, and so the local municipality in this case being Matuba. And so we will start in October in addressing this 2,161 customers that are impacted by load reduction, and then by March 2026 these 2,161 customers then would not have load reduction. For those that are then illegally vending or bypassing the meters, we'd be able to address them at an individual level rather than at a feeder or network level itself. Similarly, in the next example for KwaZulu-Natal, we have a similar approach where we have the details. If we can just go to the next network, sorry, for Limpopo, we have a similar example in terms of the details per feeder, per municipality, per ward, and then the start and the actual end dates in terms of eliminating the load reduction itself. So, Chair, as a submission itself, we do understand the impact the load reduction had had in terms of our particular communities that we are servicing, and we would like to change this picture in terms of eliminating the load reduction in terms of what needs to be done. And I think these are going to be underpinned by us following a strict governance and having oversight both from a national perspective under the guidance of the Department of Electricity and Energy itself, plus the engagement of Eskom as well as the municipalities itself. So the implementation agency is certainly going to be through ourselves in terms of the Eskom area of supply. We do have oversight in terms of project management officers, etc. And we do then commit in terms of, if we do have the cooperation from all of the stakeholders, that we will eliminate the load reduction in terms of our plan by March 2027. I thank you.
Chair?
We've lost him.
No, we lost
No,
you.
it's finished, Chair.
Oh, he's back?
No, it's finished, Chair.
Oh, he has finished. And then, can we ask questions now? Or is there anything that needs to be added by other colleagues?
No, Chairperson? This is
Yes.
Kubesh again.
Yes.
Chairperson, I think that we have concluded our presentation, and I think just to add further, in summary, the plan includes 3 major activities to resolve the problem of load reduction, which is an allocation for free basic electricity, smart meter rollout, and distributed energy resource deployment, which talks to achieving universal access. And we think that this plan also talks to stabilizing the electricity distribution industry, some of the structural issues that we find ourselves in. And overall, we find that this plan will be improving the lives of our people. Thank you, Chairperson, and back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Acting. Now, let's just give other honorable members to interact with the presentation. Thanks ever so much with the presentation. Let me check the hands. Yes, I can see that the hands are there. The first one is Honorable Paulsen. The second one is Honorable Mile. Can we then, and the third one is Honorable Trin, can we make sure that we do as we agreed in the agenda, the 10 minutes for each, 10 minutes. Honorable Secretary, assist us with the time for the answers and all the stuff, the 10 minutes
That's
for
fine,
each.
Chair. Sure, Chair.
Paulson, Honorable Paulson.
Thank you and good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the ESCOM officials present in the meeting. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Bagwandan, Mr. Reddy. Chairperson, just to start off with, I take serious umbrage when an employee of ESCOM makes a determination that South African citizens are illegally occupying land. That is not the mandate of ESCOM. ESCOM must provide electricity. And we know that the reason for load reduction and load shedding is not as a result of the citizens of this country. It's as a result of the corruption and the failure and the incompetence of ESCOM. So don't shift blame and start criminalizing people by saying that they are illegally occupying land. Doesn't matter where they live or what their status is. ESCOM's mandate is to supply electricity to the citizens of this country. So I want to ask Mr. Reddy, right? I don't think anyone would willfully want to illegally connect electricity. You know the risk of you run by making an illegal connection. And Mr. Reddy, can you tell us how many people have lost their lives through making an illegal electricity connection simply because ESCOM failed to supply them with electricity? Mr. Reddy? Chair? Hello?
Hello?
That was my first question. Is Mr. Reddy online still?
Yes, he is. Ask all the questions so that you can be answered.
Okay, so I don't ask a question and he responds and then okay. All right.
I suggest that you ask questions and then we will answer it.
So then I'd also like to know, let's say I live in an area like Alexandria, and it's right opposite Sandton, and we make these so-called illegal electricity connections, right? Now, logic says if I'm making illegal electricity connections in Alexandria, then it should affect Sandton. So I'd like to know, does Sandton have load reduction as a result of illegal electricity connections? And then, so this strategy of ESCOM proposes that legalizing these electricity connections to ensure appropriate infrastructure is made available and reduce the risk of overloading. So what specific regulatory changes and funding mechanisms are planned to transition these current users? And how will the department manage the potential risk of increased demand immediately following the legalization before infrastructure upgrades are complete? Then also, smart meters are very nice, and I like the idea. But what I don't like is that someone that's already going to struggle to purchase electricity, sufficient electricity, because trust me, even that 200 kilowatt hours, when it does materialize, if it does materialize under this ANC government, it's going to be insufficient. So will users have to pay for a smart meter? And will these smart meters, so you're going to roll out millions of them, will these smart meters be manufactured locally? Or is this again going to be something that we're going to import? And have we gone to local companies to source or to get them to produce these smart meters? Because, you know, I've got a electricity meter and it broke and I had to get a new one. So I'd like to know, you know, this is probably a case that's a situation that's common with all of us. You know, it's not something you buy once and it lasts forever. So are we producing these locally? Because I would shudder to think that once again, our money is enriching other nations. We must build the capacity to produce these things, these products that we need every day. We must produce it here in South Africa. And Eskom has got a role to play because there's so many things that we use that we are importing from overseas. So,
4 minutes, Mr. Paulson.
So in addition to the decentralized energy sources, solar panels, microgrids, as a solution to increase affordability for low-income households, what specific policies or subsidies will be implemented to make the upfront cost of these decentralized sources accessible to these low-income households? Where will this money come from to fund this? And then, so Mr. Reddy spoke about increasing the free basic electricity, proposing a 50 kilowatt to 200 kilowatt hours per month. So given that this increase is intended to encourage electricity users or regularized electricity users, you know, where they go from this irregular connection to a regular connection and they purchase. What is the timeline for finalization and implementation of this revised allocation of 200 kilowatts? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Can we request a response? But it's so strange, ne? The 10 minutes, it's for questions and answers. Now, seemingly the 10 minutes has just been for questions only. Yeah.
No, but I wasn't most not told that it's for that I must use 5 minutes for questions and leave 5 minutes for responses. I thought 10 minutes is most now just for asking the questions, which is a little in any way. 10 minutes. There's so many questions that one has about this. It involves our people. It involves the poor.
Yeah.
Who are being discriminated against.
Yeah, and also you know that I always give another round just to manage the time. Otherwise, we'll take the whole day. But I will give over also the second chance or second round. Okay,
Chair.
let's give.
Chair.
Yes.
Chair, when we discussed this proposal and we said allocating time, the agreement was that we would allow, for example, 10 minutes, and that we would get an answer to each question, and that would then allow us to interrogate the question a little bit more deeply. So this idea that we have to ask all our questions up front and then the department gets to answer all those questions within 10 minutes doesn't work for me, and I'm sure it doesn't work for my colleagues. The proposal was that we would say, tell me your name, and the person would then answer, okay, so your name is Kevin, and what is your job? So that was the idea, but it doesn't seem to be working like that, because you've now said we have to ask all our questions and they have to answer all our questions, and I'm afraid I can't agree to that.
Honorable Mylem, can I be given an opportunity and a chance to chair the meeting? Please,
Sure.
I'm humbling you. Now, what I am saying, now that Honorable Paulson has that perception and also that thing, let's proceed and check who is answering. And the one who's answering must say that I'm answering this question, I'm answering this question for now. Please, I'm begging you, honorable members, about this. Can we then go to the department to answer?
Sorry, Chair, I have to object. I have to object very strongly, because we had a process that we had agreed on as a committee, where we said, I would ask a question, I would get an answer. I would then ask my next question, I would get an answer. And I had to conclude all my questions and answers within a time period. That was what we agreed on as a committee during our strat planning workshop, during previous sessions. Now you are unilaterally changing what the committee has agreed on. So I'm quite happy to let you chair, but then you've got to chair within the framework of what we have agreed as a committee.
I support Kevin's point of view, Chair. We had agreed on this process, and it looks like we keep on chopping and changing it.
I haven't given you, Honorable Njabeling. Thank you, Honorable Mylem. I've taken note of all what you are raising and your concern. Thank you ever so much. Can I give over to the department?
No, Chair, point of exigency, please.
I don't like this thing of point of existence. I'll give you a chance.
We need to
raise
make
your hand, Honorable Njabeling, so that I can give
I did
you
raise my hand, Chair.
I don't see it in the gadget. I don't see it in the gadget.
No, my hand is raised already.
Can
waiting for the opportunity to engage.
Okay, I will give you an opportunity, Njabeling. And
thanks, Chair. Chair, we had an agreement. I agree with Kevin fully. We had an agreement that we were going to do a question and answer session, not a question and then after that, when you finished all your questions and there's answers. We want an interactive question and answer, which means I ask a question and there is an interaction simultaneously. The answer comes in and we have a proper conversation on these issues. You are changing the format, and this is not how we agreed on this particular format, Chair. And respectfully so, please can we just adhere to agreements that we have. Every time we have an agreement, you chop and change the format of the formula which we agreed on. And it doesn't make it interactive. Actually, it just makes it us completely disillusioned as to why are we participating in a committee where you're not even taking our input serious. So please, Chair, can you just indulge us on this one, respectfully so and lovingly so. We want an interactive session, question and answers.
Honorable Njabeling, you are repeating exactly what Honorable Mylem was saying. Thanks for seconding Honorable Mylem on that. And I've already said that I've taken note of the concern that has been raised. You are repeating all that has been already said. Thank you ever so much in any case. And then let's give the department to answer Honorable Honorable Paulson. Thank you. Over to you, department.
Thank you, Chair, and I would try and address the issues that are raised by Honorable Paulson. First, starting with the issue about illegal land occupation, I think I need to emphasize the process of providing universal access starts with an integrated plan that is received via the municipalities. So in terms of the municipalities, they are very clear in terms of which land is legally occupied and which land is illegally occupied. And as part of that process, then they provide us with a plan which is within the integrated resource plan in terms of then providing electricity for those that currently do not have electricity. So the context of that statement is really in terms of the integrated plan that the municipalities would have, and they are well aware in terms of where dwellings have come up and which is legal dwellings and which they regard as illegal dwellings. And we take guidance in terms of that, in terms of then supporting them in providing universal access to our communities that we should be serving. In terms of the number of people that have lost their lives, unfortunately, because people are illegally connecting themselves, not all fatalities or injuries that are done via illegal connections are reported. And so therefore, we do not have a full picture in terms of the number of people that may have lost their lives because of illegal connections. We do keep track in terms of the ones that are reported to ESCOM, and through this committee chair, I don't have it at hand right now. I can then provide that feedback in writing at a later date. In terms of the example that was cited around Alexandra and the impact of Santon, like I've indicated, load reduction is implemented in terms of a feeder level and to specific transformer zones that are overloading the equipment and damaging the equipment or creating premature failure of that particular equipment itself. If I can use by way of analogy, if we take a dam or one of the reservoirs that we may have, and that reservoir then feeds Santon and Alexandra and different wards within Alexandra itself. When we have people that are then illegally tapping into that water system and creating holes or increasing the pressure within that water system, we would not see the complete failure of that reservoir, but we would see failure to those specific water pipes that are being then illegally tapped into. Similarly, around the electricity itself and the transformer zones, not the complete area may be impacted where you're actually having load reduction. It will be specific to the specific spurs or the feeders that are supplying. So in this example, you will have different feeders that are feeding Santon or different parts of Santon. Similarly, with Alex being one of the suburbs within Santon, it will be fed from a different feeder. And even within Alex, you would have different transformer zones. And not all of the transformer zones are then where you have, there's an overloading within that transformer zone. So certainly where you do have people that are then illegally connecting, it is specific to that particular transformer zone and that specific feeder itself. So you will not see that throughout the total municipality, or in this case, the example that was alluded to. I think the issues around smart meters and who needs to pay for the smart meters themselves, the smart meters is currently covered by the ESCOM balance sheet. And we have two aspects. One is, of course, whenever there is a failure of the equipment or the smart meter, we do the replacement. But in addition to that, we have a life cycle plan in terms of replacing smart meters, and we have compliance in terms of, I think it's the NRS 049 stand to be corrected in terms of the 20-year life cycle for meters that then need to be replaced. So that funding currently is provided from the ESCOM balance sheet itself. I think the issue about manufacturing of smart meters itself, all of the smart meters to date have been procured locally through local open and transparent tender processes itself. There is a requirement from DT High in terms of 50% of the smart meters in terms of the local requirements and content requirements must be from local. And so any manufacturer or vendor that is supplying ESCOM needs to then comply in terms of the DTI requirements. I think as ESCOM and as advocates of government in terms of improving the country's outlook and employment, we certainly are supporting the localization and ensuring that wherever possible in terms of our requirements, in terms of the tender, that we actually ask for the whoever suppliers us to meet the requirements of DTI and National Treasury. So the manufacturing is certainly in terms of supporting local industries itself. And there are a few local production lines in terms of where smart meters have been produced and purchased in terms of what we currently have within the ESCOM meters already installed. I think the issue around policy and subsidy and the DE-HART, as part of the INEP process in terms of universal access, we are looking at the lowest cost in providing universal access to all. And part of that indicated in previous media briefings done by the ministry is that we need to relook in terms of repurposing the HINEP funding that helps us in terms of providing universal access. And so the funding would be basically coming via that INEP process in supporting the issues around the DE-HART and providing that service itself. Chair, in terms of regulatory changes that are required, I think I'm going to leave it to my colleague from DEE around that and whether there is any need in providing any changes to the regulatory requirements itself. Similarly, around the FBE, like we've indicated, there is a need to review that framework, and there are working groups between SALGA, COCTA. We are invited at ESCOM, municipalities are invited, National Treasury are invited. I think that engagement is ongoing, but right now there is no framework or timeline. And again, I think the Department of Energy is in a better position in terms of responding to that aspect. Thanks, Chair.
Chairperson Kubeshni again, just to then add to Colin Reddy's feedback, particularly on the policies and regulation. So, Chairperson, policies and regulations are iterative processes. So the electricity pricing policy is being reviewed. It had gone to public out for public comment. It had gone via the NEDLAC processes, and the electricity pricing policy is now being taken to cabinet processes. Then, Chairperson, in terms of the electricity pricing policy, from there you would then get the frameworks. For example, the free basic electricity framework, you would get, subsidies and regulations. And then these are also being changed. So the free basic electricity, particularly, there are a number of studies being undertaken by SALGA, universities, SANEDI, and discussions with National Treasury to for us to arrive at the particular number, and then this will then be put into the free basic electricity framework and published. So we are busy with it, Chairperson, and but whilst we're busy with all of this, we cannot wait and not serve our people, because this is something that they experience every day. Thank you, and back to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Acting. Can I check with Honorable Paulson that his questions are being answered? All of them. Paulson?
Chairperson, thank you very much. I did ask the question, but I live in Alexandria and I make a connection, right? All us irregular connection. Does it affect the people over the road in Sandton, or is it going to affect someone somewhere else that is not as affluent as the people in Sandton? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Palser. Honorable Milam?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to Eskom for the presentation. So my first question is, given that you have to produce 1.69 million smart meters by March 2027, what is the exact amount that has been allocated per smart meter for production and installation, and where is it being funded from? What is the supply chain process that you are following in order? You said that you've gone out to a dedicated supply chain process and you're following an open and transparent, but unpack that for us. Tell us what you've done. Did you call for tenders? Where are we in that process? And what guarantees do we have that this entire project will be completed in time? On a similar vein, you've indicated that you're going to do, I think it was 578,000 meters by March of next year. Well, we're already at the end of October. So how far are we in the current process in terms of reaching that target of March 2026? How many have you installed today? Because you've indicated that the slide is current. So I'm a little bit confused. Are you going to do that full amount in essentially 3 months? Then I just want to talk a little bit about revenue protection. You've spoken about quite extensively about electricity theft and illegal connections. So what targets have you set for yourselves to reduce that electricity theft in your distribution areas? How are you going to do it? And when I talk about targets, both in rand values and in terms of megawatts or kilowatts saved, how are you going to achieve that, and what are you going to do that? You have a target. You describe the free basic electricity program as being inadequate. You say you're serving 485,000 beneficiaries against a target of 2.1 million indigent households. And I absolutely agree that it needs to be addressed. So my question is, what is the timeline for addressing that? And what are you doing to interact with COGTA to ensure that those people are registered? Social development, where is the pooling of data, or are you all just operating in your own individual silos? When is phase 2 of that FBE framework scheduled to begin? And what legislative and policy changes are necessary to make it a reality, to make it more effective, to help us reduce overloading? Lastly, you talk about distributed energy resources deployment, and you say that this is essential for, or that is to prioritize essential services, schools and clinics. You also talk about enabling prosumers. So my questions here, I have two. The first is, what is your projected installed capacity for DER deployment by March 2027? And how much budget have you allocated for that? And secondly, how will you ensure that network infrastructure is rapidly upgraded for prosumers to feed excess renewable energy into the network, particularly in areas currently affected by overloading and load reduction? Thank you, Chair.
Department.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honorable Kevin. So, starting with the production cost, unfortunately, I am not in a position to reveal the production cost per supplier, because I would probably be contravening the tender proposals that they would put forward to Eskom. And remember that this is an ongoing process in terms of where there is an open tender process in terms of suppliers then submitting when they are invited to tender itself. And so there is a guideline in terms of that, but each of the particular suppliers themselves have whatever they want to put forward in terms of a tender. So I'm unable to reveal that cost without contravening inverted commas. I would want to call it the proprietary rights in terms of whatever they want to submit as a tender itself. In terms of the call for tenders, Eskom follows what we call the 1039, which is a procedure within Eskom, and which follows then the requirements of National Treasury and the PFMA requirements, in where we then issue tenders to the open market, or if it is going to be a closed tender, then it is issued to products that have been tested and approved by Eskom, what we call the tip list, and these would have then met our technical specifications in terms of the requirements around smart meters to be installed within our networks itself. I think in terms of the full amount, in terms of the next 3 months, we are currently sitting would just over, and I stand to be corrected to the exact number, I don't have it in front of me, but we're sitting with roughly 278,000 meters that we want to install, that we have in terms of stock in hand to be installed within the period that we've reflected. I think if you look in terms of the targets that we've reflected by way of example, we are looking at roughly about 100,000 meters for this month and 100,000 for next month. And then in December, because it's a low period between December and January, about 45,000 in terms of those particular meters. So we have sufficient meters that we have in terms of being able to then deliver against the targets that we have. And we do have weekly reporting in terms of tracking against those particular targets itself. In terms of the actual numbers, and again, I don't have it in front of me, but we are looking at roughly about 131 or 137,000 smart meters that we've already installed. In terms of illegal connections and the targets for energy losses, our proposal in terms of having a full system is that we are looking at having at least a 5% improvement as we start to roll out these on a year-to-year basis, and then getting, again, this is only reflecting the 18-month period, but we have a longer term plan, And the idea is that we will at least have a 35% improvement by between years 3 to 5 as we start to roll out in terms of the energy losses. And then if you then can equate that 5%, like I've indicated, for the financial year 2024, it was 13.5, and then last year we've reported 14.7 terawatt hours. And if we start to then look in each year, we're trying to look at least a 5% improvement itself. And then once we have a full system in terms of MDMS itself, we then would see a step change in terms of that energy losses. So we do have a target that we have contracted between the different divisions in Eskom and between the shareholder compact and Eskom itself. In terms of registering the indigent customers in terms of the 485 to the 2.1 million that I reflect in terms of the area of supply, again, we do accept that there needs a strong improvement in terms of the registration of our indigenous communities within this indigent register for those qualifying for the free basic electricity itself. The process in terms of registering these indigent communities are within the municipality, so we rely for the municipalities in registering these, and then based on that registration, we get a request in terms of these are the number of indigent registered members, and we then provide those particular members within that. It is work that is currently being done by Saga and Kokta in terms of trying to register this together with the municipality. So there is a working group in looking at the most efficient way in which we can register the 2.1. But in the meanwhile, the transition strategy in the registration, as we engage the communities and as we have the social facilitation within these communities, we then, together with the municipalities, try and register those indigent who are not on the register itself. With respect to phase 2 of the FBE, again, I would leave it to my colleague from the Department of Energy around that. And similarly, I've indicated when it comes to the budgeting of the DERs, etc., as part of our drive to provide universal access, we currently at the national level sit at 94% of our population that has electricity, and internationally 97% is accepted as universal access. So in terms of the numbers that we have, 1.6 million of our communities do not have access to electricity, both at the municipal level and an Eskom area of supply level. And we have, within the Eskom area of supply area, we have a plan for the 600,000 consumers within our area of supply. In terms of the budget, that needs to be still worked out because the budget is done on a phase process as part of the integrated planning and the location from INEP. So on a yearly basis, we do apply for that budget itself. So it is not predetermined over a period of time itself. Chair, thanks. I think I will hand over to my colleague from Dr. Kobashni.
Thanks, Chairperson. Chairperson, I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. Can we check with Honorable Mailem? I all your answers. You can, yes.
I just want to get clarity on one question, and that was the rollout of smart meters for the remainder of the year. And I'm not sure if I misunderstood or what it might be, but as I understand it, let me just find the slide here. as I understand it, you planning on rolling out 577,000 smart meters between now and the end of March. You indicated that you have 278,000 meters in stock and that you've done about 100 and something thousand meters, but that doesn't add up to the 577,000. So does that indicate that you are going to fall short of that 577,000 target by March 2026? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair, to you. So in terms of the stock in hand, like I've indicated, that is the number. Currently, if you go into the Eskom portal, you would there is a tender that's currently out in terms of existing contracts that we have for the balance of the smart meters to ensure that we meet the target by end of March 2027. It is, again, like I've said, in terms of governance and the open tender process, meeting the requirements of both the PFMA and the National Treasury requirements itself. So that process is out in the market to then make sure that we have adequate smart meters in fulfilling our requirements for meeting phase one of this target itself. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Miliam, have they answered all you want to know?
Yeah, Chair, I'm not sure that actually does give me a concrete answer as to whether or not they will meet that target. I mean, if it's out to tender, and we all know how long tender processes take, I'm not convinced that we are going to see 577,000 meters installed by the end of March 2026. But that's my opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay. Honorable Trin, they will also elaborate more when they have time. We'll go to the second round.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just three questions. My first question is with regards to cost. What is the estimated, or even if it's fixed, if you have a fixed total cost to reduce load reduction from the implementation phase to the completion phase, which I think you said was March 2027. So what is your estimated or fixed, if you have a cost of this, what this total cost across these three provinces in particular, what is it going to cost? And this particular question is superimposed on the fact that I think you said some 30 billion is lost through theft and illegal connections. So one wants to look at, obviously, we're going to be saving, we're going to be spending X amount. This is what is actually costing us annually through theft and illegal connections. But this is the amount that we're going to have to put in order to reduce that 30 billion loss in terms of theft, illegal connections. The second question, Chair, has to deal with the type of analysis or system that is used to determine whether one is indigent. And so I don't know whether Eskom actually has a particular system in terms of determining who is indigent, and whether there's this inter-indigent system that is in place that municipalities are using, whether that comes from government or from COCTA, and if Eskom is involved in that. To a large extent, I think I understand that the determination of the indigent would actually come from the municipalities. That particular data of who is indigent and who's not indigent and who qualifies for the free electricity ought to, and obviously would come from your municipalities. But how is this going to be managed, properly managed? as the data that comes from municipalities, unfortunately, may be open to exploitation or interpretation if there is not a kind of a common system of defining who is indigent and who isn't. And then, Chair, my last question is on the DER deployment. We were told in the presentations where we were interacting with the Auditor General and so on, that in particular with the microgrids, the target, the number of microgrids that were set to be deployed, particularly within your indigent communities, difficult to reach communities, the number of microgrids, the target was missed essentially, and the reason why the target was missed was because of a lack of funds in order to build these microgrids firstly, and then deploy them. So what is the status on the microgrids as a part of the DER deployment, and what is the number of those estimated to be deployed? Thank you, Chair.
Department.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So, Honorable Wayne, I think in terms of the cost, I will provide that in writing. When we are looking at load reduction itself, we try and integrate this project in terms of the replacement of smart meters together with any refurbishment in that network that needs to be done. And so I will have to just provide in writing the specific aspects relating to smart meters, taking out other work that we integrate as part of the overall project in terms of our optimization and our efficiency drive in just going once to an area rather than going back itself. With respect to the indigent register and determining who qualifies, like I've indicated, that is not determined by Eskom. We rely in terms of the register that is provided via the municipality. And so I think my colleagues in DEE will then be in a better position to respond to that itself. The issue around DER deployment and microgrids and the lack of funds, Chair, unfortunately, I don't have the details in which the Honourable Member refers to what was provided by the AG itself. But what we do look at is when we look at projects and we look at the life cycle costing of providing a technical solution addressing a particular problem itself. And based in terms of that life cycle cost of serving that particular customer or community, we then look at all of the different alternatives in how we can then service that particular project or community itself. So each one of these projects, there is a business case that would be done for that, and based on that business case, then we choose the best alternative. And if that best alternative is then a microgrid or a DER, then certainly that's the option that we take. It is not something that is painted where you upfront choose an alternative without considering what would then be other alternatives that could solve a particular problem in what we want to actually address. So each one is done on a case-by-case basis itself. I think when we do an high-level plan, we have an idea in terms of some of the constraints that we have within the network, and then within that context, we then set a number, or we share a number in terms of those particular ones that we would like to address. But when we get closer to the actual project itself, detailed analysis are actually done in choosing then the best alternative to address a particular issue itself. So by way of example, let's say, for example, in Zanin, we have a 20 MVA transformer, and currently the demand within that area is 26 MVA due to normal growth, due to illegal connections, etc. So one of the issues would be that we replace that 20 MVA transformer with, say, two additional transformers, 2 by 20, or an additional 10 MVA. The alternative to that could actually be in terms of where you've now put in these smart meters, and wherever we've seen the introduction of smart meters, we've seen a reduction in terms of the demand, because those consumers that are using electricity without thinking of it, then now that they're paying for it, basically then reduce the demand. So that's one way. The second would be then in terms of then providing or shifting the peak, and that could be done then by the DER solution, whether it is a microgrid or a solar PV in individual households, etc. So all of those would be evaluated to then find the best technical solution in terms of what we provide. Thanks, Chair. I'll ask my colleague to respond around the indigent register.
Thank you, Chairperson. Kobeshni here, and I'm just going to add and respond. So, Chairperson, the Municipal Systems Act and the Free Basic Services Policy empower the municipalities to develop their own indigenous determination. And to identify and register the indigent households within their jurisdiction. So each municipality will tailor its indigent criteria to local socioeconomic conditions, but they do so within the national policies that are issued by COCTA and National Treasury. Thank you, Chairperson, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Can we check whether are the Honorable Tring, are the questions answered all? Or do you still have another one?
Yeah, no, Chair. So I will wait for the response in writing for the total cost. I think that there is a challenge where we have, each municipality determining who is indigent and who isn't. One municipality may decide that somebody who earns 10,000 Rand a month is indigent. Another may determine if it's somebody that's below 3,000 Rand, for example, or the poverty line index. So I think that we have a challenge, and that's kind of where I was going with my question. And I think that we need to try to, because as I said, it's open to exploitation or maybe even interpretation. So there is a concern with regards to determining who is actually indigent if there's no standardization. I think across the board. And then my question with regards to the microgrids, Chair, was, there was a number that Eskom, that the department had, a number of microgrids that they were looking at actually putting out as a measure to ease load reduction. And I didn't get a fixed answer in terms of how many have been put out. And I understand that there has to be firstly an analysis done to determine what type of system is deployed, whether it's the microgrid or solar or whatever the case is, rooftop, or other interventions. But my question was specifically with regards to how many. So we did have a target. I can't remember, unfortunately, what that target was, and we missed the target with regards to those microgrids. So it is a very, I think, also specific question. So if there's anybody who can actually, let me know what that target is, and how far are we down the line to possibly employing those particular microgrids. I think that would be appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Department?
Chairperson, I think Colin Reddy has, also stated that for the information that we do not have at hand, we will supply that in writing. So the exact numbers. Chairperson, we can see you. Your camera is on. So, Chairperson, so we will supply those numbers in writing, Chairperson. And then just coming back to the point on, the standardization for indigent households, the guidelines right now guide municipalities on, identifying indigent households because of the socio-economic conditions that differ per municipality. But I do see the point that Honorable Wayne Tiding is making. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Acting. Can we then pass to the other honorable member? Otherwise, if there is also any other thing, we'll also give another round. Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings again to you, Honorable Chair, and all honorable members in the meeting together with the department. Honorable Chair, I will first would like to appreciate the report presented today on the load reduction, and I will also, Honorable Chair, would like to welcome the fact that the department has worked tirelessly to eliminate load shedding, and that has been a very positive development for South Africa. Honorable Chair, it has been able to lead to increased business confidence and economic stability, greater productivity, and improved quality of life. And now the department has developed a plan to reduce load reduction. Honorable Chair, I think that is appreciated. Chair, while the presentation correctly focuses on the main provinces that experience load reduction, it is quite clear that all other provinces, including the city of Cape Town, experience load reduction as well. And therefore, there is a need for national plan to work for both Eskom supply areas and the metros. What I want to know, Chair, is how is the department dealing with the distribution infrastructure weaknesses in the metros? Secondly, Chair, what will be the specific load limiting thresholds implemented via the smart meters, and how will this be communicated to ensure households can manage their essential appliance usage? And Chair, once smart meters are installed, I just want to maybe get clarity. What is the long-term maintenance and anti-tampering strategy to ensure that the new system remains secure and functional? Chair, I do believe it will be productive if the infrastructure rollout schedule also aligns with the revised basic electricity framework implementation. I think that will be of assistance. So I also wanted to know maybe when will the framework be announced, or the second round be announced. I also wanted to get clarity on that as well, Chair. I know Honorable Malin has touched on it as well. Honorable Chair, the national plan includes a commitment to refurbish and maintain the distribution and reticulation infrastructure. I think it's very crucial as many distribution assets in the municipalities are aging, and have not received adequate maintenance and are now under immense strain from overloading as well as theft. Therefore, Chair, I want to maybe get clarity on what is the specific ring-fenced capital expenditure budget for the distribution and reticulation refurbishment program from the next 5 years from the department. I wanted to get that, Chair. And given the maintenance backlogs, I want to understand what criteria are used to prioritize the refurbishment project. For instance, are we going to check at the high-risk areas or the oldest assets or areas of highest commercial losses? Those are my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Member. Department.
Thank you, Chair. Again, like I've indicated, our submission today was only addressing the area of supply within Eskom's area of supply. So in terms of the distribution infrastructure within the Munich's itself, Chair, I am not in a position to be able to respond, and maybe my colleague, Dr. Kubashni, might be in a better position itself. But I think when the Minister did his media briefing on the 25th of September, he did indicate that they are engaging the municipalities in understanding similarly how within the Eskom area of supply, the impact of the load reduction and how many customers and transformers, etc., are impacted. So that is work in progress. And I think in due time, the ministry will probably be in a better position once they've received the details from the municipality to be able to then pick up what is the state in terms of the distribution infrastructure within the municipalities itself. Chair, I didn't hear the question around the road reduction in terms of the households itself, so I apologize for that. I think in terms of long-term maintenance and functioning of the smart meters, similar to other equipment within the Eskom area of supply, we have what we call a life cycle plan for different types of equipment. And so in the case of the smart meters, we've asked for a lifespan of between 15 and 20 years. And the way the smart meters would actually work at a very high level without getting too technical is you have a smart meter that is connected to each individual household or point of supply. And from that smart meter, it gets connected to what we call a distribution concentrator or data concentrator, or in some cases, we call it an energy concentrator. So on average, for each transformer zone, we have between 40 to up to 200 connections that come to this data concentrator. And then from there, it goes into what we call an EDN system that aggregates all of this information. And then lastly, to an MDNS system, which is a meter data management system in terms of where we do all of the analytics for being able to monitor this. So from a maintenance perspective, as part of the monitoring, we have what we call a smart metering operating center in where we then track the performance of each of these meters. And if there is an issue with the meter, we would then get back an alarm from the meter. And the person that is then managing the smog first tries and do the analysis. Well, first of all, the system will try and do some sort of analysis based on whatever algorithm it has, or machine learning or AI system that it has incorporated in terms of that software. And in addition to that, then the operator will also try and do some desktop analysis and then contact the customer if there is a problem, and failing which we would then send out a technician to have a look at it. And then based on whatever the technician sees, we'd either replace that meter or fix the meter. But the intention is to have a lifespan between 15 and 20 years, and that lifespan will follow the life cycle program that we have for that particular equipment. Like I've indicated earlier, besides changing the technology, we need to ensure that our processes now match this digitization and making visible the low voltage network. So we are looking in terms of making process changes to support this, together with the resources that need to then respond to if you have an alarm. I think one of the issues that we do pick up, and one of the lessons that we've learned, is that if as a way of example, you have an alarm and you don't respond to that, then you actually negate all of the benefits that you should have had from that technology change itself. So as an analogy is, if you hear that your car alarm is going and you don't go and have a look what is actually happening to that, the criminals, if, for example, they were interfering with your car, take notice of that. And then if there is no response to someone, checking on what's happening to the car, then later on they will come and, perform whatever malfeasance they want. Similarly, with a smart meter, if we don't respond to that, and the people that want to do things illegally will then see that there's no response, no one is taking any action. So part of our process is relooking at how we are structured in protecting our revenue so that we are able to then respond to this. So in terms of the long-term maintenance and the functionality of that, those are the sort of changes that we will make in terms of supporting the improvements that we would like to see. I think on the rollout of the framework for FBE, again, I think my colleague from DE will respond to that. I think in terms of the refurbishment of the network and the infrastructure over the next 5 years, like we indicate, we make a submission to NERSA for the different values. And again, I would provide a ring-fence cost for particular networks in writing, which will then reflect whatever period we have approved for NERSA. But we can reflect again our submission to NERSA in terms of what we want for the refurbishment and the replacement of infrastructure, but also in terms of what we have as part of the plan within that 5-year period itself. In terms of the maintenance backlog for the municipalities, again, like I'm indicating, in terms of the media briefing that the minister done on the 25th, is currently working with municipalities or the department in terms of getting that information, and they will then certainly provide that information at a later stage. Thanks, Chair. If I can hand back to my colleague in DE, Dr.
Chairperson? So just for me to come in and support already what Colin Reddy has already discussed. The free basic electricity frameworks, we are still working on that. Like I said earlier in my response, that studies are still underway by SALGA, National Treasury, and universities. We will consolidate those studies and then make a recommendation and put out a framework. Our target is in Q4, Chairperson. So by the next financial, by the close of the financial year, we would have settled on, whether that the free basic electricity, moves between a range of 50 to 200 kilowatts, but the discussions need to be, what exactly is that number, where exactly we find that money from. So these are discussions with the National Treasury. It is a zero-sum game, which means that the money has to be found somewhere within the system. So that is what the studies are about as well, to try and understand how we do it, where we do it, and then put out that framework. Chairperson, and also in terms of the municipality, we are working with the municipalities to understand the state of their infrastructure and also bring the broader stability that is required to the electricity distribution industry. Thank you, Chairperson, and back to you.
Thank you very much. Let's check with Honorable Vusi. Vusi, uphendulekile?
No, I'm fine, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Can I give over to Honorable Brian Leafy?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the first question that I would like to ask is where a transformer is damaged and a section of the community is without electricity for a while, what is ESCOM or the department's policy and conditions under which that section of the community will be reconnected? So under which the transformer will be replaced? Because we have had reports where communities have said that the ESCOM is refusing to replace the transformer until everybody in that community's electricity has been paid up, and that there is no one in the community that owes ESCOM money. So that affects even people who have paid their electricity, and the transformer will not be replaced until everybody in that community. Is that policy, and where is that written down? Because we have received that complaint quite often. The second question is, what is ESCOM's turnaround time for repairing or replacing a damaged transformer? Because sometimes people have gone for 3, 4, 5 months without electricity because a transformer is damaged. And thirdly, Chair, do all smart meters have a prepaid capability? I just want to understand if smart meters also mean that it is a prepaid, it also has a prepaid capability. And finally, how much revenue has been lost in the 2024-25 financial year due to electricity being generated but not consumed or sold due to load reduction? Thank you.
Thank you. Department, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honorable Mr. Molofi itself. With respect to the transformers being damaged in terms of replacement, we have indicated to communities, and we've shared via the local councillors and whatever engagements we have during our community education sessions, that where we believe the transformer has failed prematurely because of illegal connections and overloading of the transformers, that we would do an audit within that area in terms of the connections of those transformers before we would then replace the transformer itself. And where there is resistance from those communities in allowing us to do that, we do work then with the local councillors and local government in helping us to address those communities so that we can do those audits and then remove any illegal connections that may be contributing to the premature failure of the transformer itself. I think we have seen, Chair, over a period of time, like I've indicated, that we've lost significant number of transformers, and the majority of these have been because of overloading or illegal connections or vandalism, or generally a combination of that. So our stance in terms of before we reconnect, we would go in and do an audit before we actually connect the transformer. The turnaround time for transformers, again, it depends in terms of the size of the transformers and the lead time in terms of the transformers that we replace, and some of them can take up to 6 months in terms of the replacement if we don't have the stock, and we have to then go out to the market in terms of procuring these, or if we have existing contracts and we are then waiting for the supply of these transformers in terms of then getting them so that we can. We do understand that the transformers are one of these items that have a long lead time in terms of actual replacement, and that's why the issue around load reduction as a proactive preventative measure in terms of before the equipment is damaged, we try and prevent that equipment from being damaged, because the preventative measure is a much faster turnaround time than after having the failure and then trying to replace that transformer itself. Besides then the additional cost that is involved in terms of replacing the equipment. With respect to the smart meters and the prepaid capability, Chair, all of our smart meters have the prepaid capability in terms of being able to either go between prepaid and postpaid. In fact, South Africa as a country and as a nation has led the world in terms of the specification around prepaid. So internationally now, in what we call AVIS 2, we are now moving to AVIS 3, which is then incorporating the requirement for smart meter to have the prepaid capability. And that technology and specifications was actually led by the work that has actually been done by South Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I check with Brian? Honorable Brian, is there anything that you think it hasn't been answered?
Yes, Chair, quite a few. Okay. How much revenue was lost in the 2024-25 financial year due to electricity generated but not consumed or sold due to load reduction? And secondly, I just want to understand with the smart meters, is the prepaid capability being activated in all the smart meters that are being installed? So are we simultaneously installing smart meters and prepaid meters at the same time? Or there is still smart meters that are being installed that continue to be postpaid? And then when I was asking about the damaged transformer and the policy on the conditions, our understanding is not the audit of who is connected and who is not connected, but rather who has paid electricity and who has not paid electricity. Because who owes and who does not owe. So the communities complain that ESCOM wants to know how many people have paid their electricity accounts and how many people have not paid their electricity. And therefore, this affects people that are properly connected and do not owe ESCOM any money. Because then the whole community or section of the community is not connected when they have checked who is at fault and who is not at fault. So why must the people that are or that even are improperly connected affect the people that are properly connected in a particular community? So I was not happy with those answers, Chair. And what is Eskom's turnaround time for repairing or replacing a damaged transformer? Or what was the average turnaround time during 2024-25? Thank you.
Department.
Thanks, Chair. So again, going back to the damaged transformers, like I've indicated, the process where we believe that the transformer has not failed for any other technical reason other than overloading, illegal connection, or vandalism, we do start with a audit within those areas in terms of ensuring that the transformers are, there's no illegal connections to those transformers. In addition to that, where we find the community members have illegally connected themselves to those transformers, or we find that there are meters that are bypassed within that transformer zone. The expectation... Sorry, Chair, I'm not sure. So the expectation is that 70% of those consumers within that transformer zone that have done illegal connections or ghost vending or bypass their meters and therefore are now, inverted commas, illegally utilizing energy from that transformer or overloading that transformer. 70% of those tamper fines that are issued within that transformer zone needs to be paid before the replacement of that particular transformer. As I've explained in terms of the submission earlier, because of the manner in which we don't have a granular way in disconnecting individual customers, unfortunately, both paying and non-paying customers or those that are stealing electricity are impacted when the transformer is not replaced timeously itself. And we do acknowledge that. And so as part of that solution is, again, for us to have the ability then to be able to manage individual customers, and the smart meters will certainly provide that opportunity in managing individual customers rather than where we are now required to take out a complete transformer zone rather than address individual customers. I think in terms of...
So you confirm that the paying customers who have not done anything wrong are affected by this?
I do confirm that, and I think I've indicated because of the way load reduction is done, you have a combination of both paying customers and then those customers that are performing some sort of malfeasance within that network are both impacted because we are not able currently to individually disconnect individual customers itself. So it's the integration of that Halvey network or even the medium voltage network that doesn't allow us to have that capability. But with the introduction of smart meters, it will then provide that technology going forward in terms of addressing specific customers, and the hardship that paying customers currently experience would be something of the past. The second point around the turnaround time for transformers, like I've indicated itself, it depends on the size of the transformers. It also depends in terms of the stock level that we're keeping on the transformers. Transformers have a long lead time, and so it can be up to 6 months. But the request to provide an average turnaround time for the last 12 months or the last financial year, we will provide that in writing, Chair, around that. Again, around the prepaid capabilities on smart meters, each smart meters in terms of our current specification can be changed between prepaid and postpaid. So there is no requirement in terms of changing out a meter. So if there is a need in terms of moving between postpaid and prepaid, we can, via the smart meters, be able to then move between postpaid and prepaid. With respect to the load reduction and the revenue lost in terms of load reduction, I think there is a positive spin to ESCOM in terms of where we are not now generating, because the demand would be reduced from those particular areas. And again, Chair, we can then provide that feedback in writing in terms of the revenue impact around what the load reduction has actually had.
I know that ESCOM had a practice of keeping transformers, a stock of transformers in storage, particularly in Rocheville, where these transformers would be waiting for wherever there is a problem with the transformer so that they can be replaced very quickly. But what you have just said now is that there is a long lead time. But if there is a stock of transformers, and if ESCOM is continuing to keep a stock of transformers in storage, I do not understand where the lead time comes from, because you would simply go and take it from storage and replace the transformer. Because there are instances where it has taken 3 to 4 months to replace a transformer, when in fact I could establish that there were transformers in Rocheville.
Chair, through you, like I've indicated, we would not unnecessarily keep a customer or a transformer zone out of service itself. We do have a process, and I've highlighted the process in terms of where we've lost a transformer because of overloading, illegal connections, or vandalism, or combination thereof. We do an audit within that area. We also audit the meters, the smart meters, or the split meters, or whatever type of meters within that area. And once there is compliance in terms of the tamper fines paid within those areas, then we would replace those transformers. Where we don't have the particular transformer that has failed, then unfortunately, if it is not an item in stock, we need to then, via our existing contracts or going out via a tender process, acquire those transformers before we actually replace the transformers. Again, I can't emphasize that load reduction is a preventative measure before we get to a transformer failing. And if we can actually prevent that transformer from failing, I think we would remove this need for not providing those customers with electricity itself, because we would not have this premature failure of the equipment itself. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, can you recognize my hand, please?
Who is that now?
Honorable Masiu.
Okay, but there's still Honorable Ntshabeleng and Honorable Bapti. I'll give to you, ne? And Honorable Fasia and yourself. Okay, let's give Honorable Ntshabeleng, followed by Honorable Bapti. Over to you, Honorable Ntshabeleng.
Thanks a lot, Chair, and the presenters for the presentation. I just wanted to maybe do a recap quickly on this one. Can you just explain to us, Mr. Colin, what do you mean by free basic electricity that is provided to indigent households?
So, free basic electricity means that we provide those indigent customers with 50 kilowatts of electricity that they are able to utilize for their requirements itself. And this is again via the policy itself.
Okay, great. So you do have a system in place, right, for monitoring the 50 kilowatt free basic electricity?
Recording stopped.
We get a list. The process is that the municipalities would register.
Sorry, Alrico, it looks like the recording has stopped.
Secretary? Secretary?
Okay, I will tell him, Mr. Mchabelin.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. All right, sir. I think, Mr. Collin, you were saying you do have a system?
So the process is that the municipalities would register the indigent communities within the area itself, and they would then provide that listing to Eskom, and based on that listing, then Eskom would provide a voucher like you would go when you're buying electricity to then that list of customers in terms of that 50 kilowatt hours.
So you do have a system in place which we can audit to see that people are receiving free indigent electricity per meter, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So how many meters do you currently have out there of free indigent electricity?
Like I've indicated in the submission, they are currently, in terms of the last report that we had, just over 485,000 that are receiving the free basic electricity, even though there's a potential based on the census report of about 2.1 million.
Okay. In South Africa, the estimate of of indigent community, by the way, is about 8.5 million. There's about 17.5 million households in South Africa. Almost half of that actually falling in the category of the poorest community and households. So maybe we need to look at the system whereby you have to get into the understanding and really do a promotional campaign to encourage people to come forward for a free indigent electricity so that you can end the current crisis of the electricity theft, the issue, as you're saying, vandalization, and the issue around the illegal connections and the legal connections that you have illegally switched off from customers, like as in my colleague mentioned it, that there are complaints that they are paying communities that have been removed off the grid and the network due to a transformer problem. We have received those complaints and are really serious complaints whereby there's over 6 to 8, sometimes even 12 months of non-connection. The last we received was 2 years, by the way, where Eskom offices are refusing to reconnect people. So I think this issue of free indigent electricity, we're not even going to call it basic. Free indigent electricity is becoming a crisis, So we need to just understand how you pass the credit on, if your register exists, and if that credit is passed on a voucher basis, on a prepaid voucher level.
Certainly support the need to increase the register. Like we've indicated earlier, the registration is done via the municipalities and again in line with the policies for FBE. But I fully support and subscribe to the need in terms of increasing, and I think in our submission we indicate that as well, that we need to increase the number of indigents that receive FBE. Thank you.
Okay. On the smart meters, I think maybe it can be either department or Eskom based. On the smart meters procurement program, you did indicate earlier that you can't get into the dynamics, but no, this is a committee. Information of this nature is a public information because, as you know, all tenders are public. So our announcement of winners as well as bidders that have been secured and awarded, it's a public open information. So we can't be told at the committee level that we are unable to receive particular information because the information is somehow confidential. So that is unacceptable. We need a list of the bidders that bidded, who were actually pre-approved, and the bidders that won the awards. Do you have that list in place, sir?
As part of the requirements, certainly we keep a record of this because all of that needs to be auditable itself. And again, at the risk of talking about individual suppliers, certainly we can provide the list of those suppliers that are that have bidded and those that have actually won. And I think, again, I stand to be corrected. Normally, that announcement in terms of the winning bidders are on. It slips my tongue now in terms of the system that we need to publish, but we can provide that in writing in terms of those.
Okay. And then here you're saying that you're intending to roll out 6.2 million smart meters. That's a huge quantity. And what is the budget for that 6.2 million of your distributed by 2029? Do you have a budget, or this is an assumption by the department or ESCOM?
So the 6.2 million smart meter rollout is part of the overall requirement in terms of our digital transformation and the improvement that we would like to see on our network. But it is also a requirement in terms of the NRS 049. I stand correct to do that number in terms of where meters need to be changed within a 20-year period itself. That process has gone through the governance within ESCOM itself all the way to the full board, and board has actually approved just the first year of rollout, and that amount is 5.7 billion. What is the requirement is that we need to demonstrate all of the benefits that we've reflected in the business case before then the release of the balance of the business case requirements. So for now, in terms of what is actually approved, it is 5.7 billion.
Okay. So the bidders have already been concluded. The program is already underway for the full procurement of the meters. There's not going to be any change to the program itself.
No. So the board has actually approved the investment decision. We are now busy going to the commercial process, and we need to go to what we call the Investment and Finance Committee, which then approves the commercial strategy are able for us to actually go for that 6.2 million program itself. I think we need to distinguish, as much as we're combining and integrating the load reduction plan, the 6.2 million is a total program around smart meters for the country itself.
Yeah, I mean, you would say your smart meters are going to be part of your continuing load reduction plan, right?
Yes.
Because smart meters operate as prepaid, and they do load management and load curtailing if needed.
Yes, and we have not got approval yet from the governance committee for the commercial strategy. And once we have that, then again, based on whatever approval we get via the governance, we will then go out on an open tender to the market.
And a follow-up on that is, are these smart meters locally manufactured, locally procured, or they are imported?
Like I've indicated earlier, the smart meters in terms of our procurement is based in terms of the DTI requirements, and all of the suppliers that we've engaged so far are the ones that are registered in South Africa.
I did that.
Yeah, we'll.
Yeah. All right, Johnny.
Okay, so the tender is generally for those that are in terms of the local market. I think Eskom's drive in terms of supporting localization is key in terms of changing the outlook of the country around, whatever we want to do in increasing employment and getting direct investment in the country itself. So whichever supplier tenders for this needs to meet the requirements of the DTI. And like I've indicated, in terms of the DTI, the smart meters is a designated piece of equipment, and so it needs to meet the 50% criteria as highlighted by DTI.
So it is important that we know who are the OEMs, like as in the meter manufacturers, as well as the list of the companies that have already been awarded. Why we need this list is important. One, this is a major, huge tender. We need transparency on it. We need to know who are the suppliers, and we need to know the information as to how was this process concluded and agreed on, and the pricing, particularly from a committee point of view, so that we can hold the process as having been fair, transparent, and open, and having given opportunity on an equal basis. It cannot be a closed tender, a closed system, and then a system that actually excludes suppliers in general. So we want to see the full participation of major companies that are currently South African, and the issue of the Black economic empowerment on it. The South Africans benefiting out of this whole process, because this is a major project, as you know, where you are going to roll out to all the households 6.2 million. It's a massive program. So we really want to know how our people, especially SMEs, as well as installers, are going to be empowered in this whole program.
So in terms of the 6.2 million, like I've indicated, we are still going through the governance process, and we need approval in terms of that commercial strategy. But the documentation that is submitted to them indicates an open and a transparent process, meeting the requirements in terms of National Treasury and PFMA and Eskom's own governance in terms of what we call 1039 in terms of the procurement standards and procedures. So that information is not available yet because we haven't gone out to the market for the 6.2 million. The ones that we have gone out is for existing in terms of the maintenance and what we're currently doing around the load reduction.
Okay. On the voucher system, in terms of the retailing of the prepaid meters technology, what is the process around that whole voucher? Who are the voucher operators? Who are the wholesalers that have been actually granted the license to do the distribution of Eskom's voucher system?
That system has been existing now for many years, and again, the service providers to that system have been via an open tender process itself. So there are many suppliers that are contracted to Eskom in terms of providing that voucher via our online vending system to Eskom itself, and it includes banks, it includes the likes of the Pick and Pays and the Spars, etc., and then of course smaller spaza shops and those type of things. But Eskom is also in the process of reevaluating its online vending system itself. So we are busy putting in the specs in which we would then go out to the market in acquiring a new online vending system. And again, it will be via an open tender process, but that's currently within our internal governance process itself.
Yeah. Maybe just to get the clarity, why is the load reduction only affecting Black townships? Majority, because you don't find the load reduction in suburbs and urban areas in the majority. You always find it being affected towards Black townships, and mainly townships that would even go for days. They would implement a load reduction, and the load reduction would affect that community for a week or several days at a time. And sometimes they just go for a whole month without electricity. How is that so?
Yeah, unfortunately, when we apply the load reduction, it is focused in terms of those particular feeders and specifically the transformer zones that are overloaded itself, and where we see that we have a great amount of energy theft or vandalism and an abnormal number of equipment failure. And when we look in terms of the distribution of where our customers sit, the majority of our customers currently in the country are Black citizens. And so it is by that majority of customers that reflect that they are impacted by the load reduction itself. So there is no targeted program from a racial profiling perspective, or even from a particular, let's say, LSM type of profiling that we look at it. The criteria is in terms of where you have more than 250,000 kilowatt hours lost onto that feeder, or where the zero bias are greater than 40% within that feeder network, that those particular areas we see a correlation in terms of pre-failure or mature failure of equipment, and then those particular areas or networks, are then what do you call it? What's the word? Not targeted, but are picked up in terms of the load reduction itself. So there is a criteria that is utilized, and the two key ones is really in terms of the energy losses within that network, which then means that those particular networks are being overloaded, and then the zero bias within that network.
Okay, but in most instances,
Mr. Shabeling's time is up.
Yeah.
Your time is up, Mr. Shabeling.
Just to finish it up, it's fine. In most instances, you would have a pre-schedule of load reduction. So how does the equipment failure do influence that? I just wanted to bring that up, because some of the load reduction schedules are pre-advanced schedules, so it wouldn't be based on the equipment failure. It would be based on the fact that we are going to shut off Soshanguve, for instance, on this predetermined date, not necessarily on the load per se. It will just be set because of it's a township. That's the assumption that we are getting. Thank you so much.
So thank you, sir. So certainly it is not in terms of a particular township itself. It is based in terms of the two key criteria that I've indicated. And again, remember, it is a preventative measure itself, and based basically on the analytics that we have done in terms of equipment failure, we then try and prevent that equipment from failing. So if you are seeing that you have more than 250,000 kilowatts in terms of energy losses, or that the amount of zero bias within that network, then you know that people are going to indiscriminately utilize energy, which is then going to result in specifically the transformers then being overloaded and then increasing the temperature. And then, of course, you're going to have insulation failure and all sorts of other things that then result in the failure of that. So it is not based, it's a technical criteria rather than in terms of a township or the type of customers you have. Thank you.
Honorable Bhakti.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to just start off with a couple of comments which I think will put my questions in some context. And the first one is that the financial dimensions of this issue and the program around it, the financial planning in particular, is not clear. I think it's important that Eskom makes this information available to the committee so we can get a clear grasp of how it's going to work within their programs. My second comment is that within KZN, which I'm familiar with because I come from here, is that informal settlements are usually illegally settled on state-owned or private land. So it's very seldom that one finds an informal settlement on land in which they're entitled to settle. And the municipalities are largely quite notorious for not acting to either curb and manage these settlements and their growth. And what we also find in these settlements that there's a high level of political influence and involvement, and that's obviously for the purpose of catching votes. But it's the reality that we live in. And one has to see that in order to understand the solution and how it's going to unroll. My first question has to do with the acquisition of an accurate indigent register from the municipalities. And we know from the past that this has not been the case. And what I'm saying is that it can't be left just to municipal administration to identify for Eskom who it is in the municipality that's indigent, because they haven't done it very well in the past. We see that from the difference in the numbers. The potential number is 2.1 million, but there's only 485,000 on FBE that are registered. And my request is to Eskom, or my question to Eskom is, how are you going to become more intimately involved in actually ensuring that those registers are accurate? And if it's left, as I say, just to the municipal administration, we'll end up with the same outcome. And I do believe it's going to be important that Eskom looks a little bit closer at the policies that each municipality employs as to how they acquire that information, and that there be some kind of a sign-off by ward councillors and ward committees to ensure the integrity of that information. Having been a councillor and seen how these indigent registers are managed and how the information is used in a preferential way to some is a concern. And I do believe Eskom has an obligation to be a little bit more involved in making sure that indigent registers are more complete and more accurate than what they are at present. Otherwise, I don't see how it's possible to ever reach that number of 2.1 million that's been referred to. My second question is, how did Eskom identify the load reduction areas that are lined up for the smart meter rollout? And I was asking this question because I looked at the example list that was flighted, and my concern arises from that some of the areas in that list that I'm well aware of don't appear to be correct. So what is available from Eskom for us to be able to determine, or for individual municipalities or any interested person to determine that they in fact have got the right places identified on that list for the load reduction program? And my concern is that there are going to be areas that are currently under load reduction, and if they're not on that list, they're not going to be serviced by the program. So my question has to do with how we're going to confirm that that list is a complete list. My third question is that in areas where normalization has already been implemented, illegal connections invariably reappear, and it results in unplanned outages, and then Eskom comes in and implements load reduction. What is not explained, and what often comes from the residents in those areas that are affected, particularly those who pay on a postpaid meter, is why does the load reduction why is it only applied on some days at some times? When one looks at the local conditions and the environment, nothing has changed. Everything's the same, and yet it's only applied on certain days. So the question that often arises is, why today and not tomorrow, and why tomorrow if not today? And if Eskom could perhaps provide an answer to that question. And my fourth question then has to do with illegal connections. The reason being that it is one of the major underlying causes of load reduction in the first place. And if the illegal connections issue is not attacked in a constructive way, then the problem is never going to go away, and we're never going to deal with it fully. And my question is, are there any formalized arrangements that Eskom has with SAPs, security companies, municipal law enforcement, local community groups, ward councillors? Is there any plan or process or agreement in place to tackle the issue of illegal connections, to monitor them, to get them removed, and to ensure that on an ongoing basis that some maintenance is done in terms of removing illegal connections that reappear after normalization has happened? And those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Department.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Honourable Edwin Bhakti. Chair, like I've indicated, in terms of the financial impact, certainly we would provide that feedback in writing. But what I can assure the committee is that we have done a business case in terms of the evaluation of doing nothing versus doing something. And again, in my head, it was not just over this short period of time, but over a 20-year period, because again, the smart meters, we look at a 20-year life cycle, and I stand to be corrected, but doing nothing, and we see the continuous increase in terms of energy theft and the equipment failure would result in an NPV of about 600 billion rands itself, versus the interventions that we've started gives us a positive NPV itself. So certainly we've considered several alternatives and also the financial impact around this. And I would, again, like I said, committed that we'll provide that feedback in writing. I think the issue around the accurate indigent register, again, like my colleague has indicated, there is an indigent policy, and that requirement in terms of registering those that should be registered as indigent lies within the rights of the municipality. But I think I can give you by way of example that we, wherever we can, we do support the municipality in terms of improving what's in the indigent register. So we don't just rely in terms of what is there. I think it's in all of our interest in terms of improving the lives of those indigent communities to support one another itself. And I think as advocates of government, and certainly supporting the preamble of our constitution in making people's lives better, we work hand in hand with the municipalities in trying to get more and more people onto that register so that we can provide this free basic electricity. And like I've indicated, even if it is just 50 kilowatts itself. We've had sessions, open sessions in the different municipalities where we invite community leaders, we invite local councillors, we've invited the mayors, and together with the ESCOM leadership within those areas, and we share with the community the issues around electricity and why we do certain things, and then the opportunity for them to register onto that indigent register itself. So we would welcome any other suggestions which could help us in terms of improving and getting more and more of our community members that need to be onto that indigent register so that we can provide the service. But we are currently working with municipalities and other stakeholders. But certainly, I think if we work as a collective, we can do a lot better as well. In terms of how load reduction areas are identified, like I've indicated, there is a criteria for the load reduction in terms of which we've identified and which we then switch off in terms of protecting the equipment and the communities itself. And unfortunately, like I've indicated, the area that I'm focusing on is really ESCOM's area of supply. The ones that are done within the individual municipalities, I don't have data for that. And I know I'm repeating myself, but the minister in his media briefing on the 25th indicated that they are engaging municipalities to address this. In terms of the confirmation of the list, I am pretty sure that these are the total number of lists. And first, the honorable member, again, like I said, are talking about areas that are outside ESCOM's area of supply. But we have gone through the list, we've engaged each of the provinces in terms of our teams within those provinces in terms of looking at the list itself and then going through the details. And that's why within the list, we've also gone to the extent of getting the granular details of looking at specific feeder names and which are then connected to a substation, and within those feeders, doing it in a proper engineering way in identifying the number of customers that are impacted within that feeder, etc. So I have full confidence in terms of the list that we do have, but if the honourable member is aware of some areas that are impacted by load reduction and that are not on the list itself, certainly if you could provide us that feedback, we will investigate and resolve if we have not picked up that itself. I think the issue around normalization and illegal connections, etc., it's not always an easy thing. And it is something that needs continuous engagement. It needs continuous auditing, and there is no silver bullet that will address this. But I think if we can provide a way in where we improve people's lives and they can see the benefit of electricity, they can see the benefit of the DER in terms of having schools, in terms of having clinics, in terms of having police stations that have electricity, and they're able to go there, and these polices are now then able to provide the services in terms of security to that, or the clinics in terms of providing health services. I think we can get to a stage where we change this narrative from it being a problem to being a solution, in terms of it being an hindrance to it being improving their lives. But it needs the commitment of all stakeholders itself. ESCOM themselves, or even municipalities or local councillors, can't do it themselves. We need this collective effort in terms of addressing the issues around illegal connections. Are we working with SAPs and different other stakeholders? Certainly, within the different environments, we do have engagements, and where we are participants in terms of stakeholder engagements within communities, which then include the like of the SAPs, includes local government. It also includes other influential stakeholders within those communities itself. And again, it's part of continuous improvement. We do believe that there is an opportunity from a social facilitation point of view to improve whatever we are doing so that we can better service our communities. I think when we look around electricity or energy is not the only service. It goes hand in hand with water, refuse removal, and sewage removal, etc. So we need to work with our other colleagues in terms of how can we holistically improve the service delivery to those communities that we want to serve itself. So certainly we do work with them, but there is always room for improvement, and we will continue in whatever opportunities there are in coordinating between SAPs, local councillors, or other NGOs, or other stakeholders in terms of improving that communication to those communities. Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if my colleague from DE wants to add anything.
Thanks, Colin. Nothing further from my side. I think we would just be repeating now. Thank you.
Honorable Bapti, are all your questions being answered?
Chair, just a couple of things. First of all, on the verification of load reduction, it seems that there is no particular process in place to ensure that what we see on the list is in fact what happens on the ground. I could point out on this particular list some particular problems that I see immediately, but I don't think that's for the committee now. What's more important is that from what I can see, there are errors in that list, and there needs to be a verification process. Now, I don't mind communicating outside of the meeting on what I've picked up, but it's quite clear to me that certainly from my own knowledge, I can see there are some omissions. So the verification process of load reduction areas and the smart meter rollout in those areas, I think, has to be looked at seriously. I think just coming to that other point about local involvement and cooperation. So here's my thinking, Chair, is that there is no formal agreement, memorandum of understanding, or any such thing in place right now. And if one looks at it just from a provincial level, and this could be at all provincial levels, if there is communication between Eskom at provincial level and SAPS at provincial level, calling in municipal law enforcement department sections from the various municipalities to put in place a plan, and this Eskom are correct that this cooperation doesn't just extend to electrical service, it also extends to water services, other things. But unless that cooperation is formally implemented at a provincial level, it's very difficult at a local level to get that cooperation to happen. And one may be successful and one may be unsuccessful. But when there is some kind of understanding or memorandum of understanding, a formal arrangement at provincial level, it will filter down and it'll make it much easier for municipalities and Eskom at a local level to actually get cooperation from local law enforcement, from the community itself, through its neighbourhood watches and through the security companies to go about the process of monitoring and implementing controls to prevent illegal connections or theft and vandalism. So that's my suggestion for Eskom. Take it or leave it. I hope they take it. But, you know, there is also social responsibility funding available within Eskom's budget that could be used for this initiative. And I do think it would go a long way to addressing theft, vandalism, illegal connections, and the whole scourge of electricity theft. That's as far as I'll go with. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chair, through you.
You have anything to say on that side?
Chair, in terms of what the honourable member is indicating around the process, we do have a complete process. In terms of this particular submission for KZN, all we did was show an example, which is a snapshot. If I go through the complete list of KZN, it is probably 4 or 5 pages in terms of number of lines, if it is in a PowerPoint presentation. Again, Chair, through you, we can make the complete list available to the committee, which we would then send in writing if it pleases the committee.
Thank you.
Honorable Sompa.
Thank you, Chair. Let me also welcome the report that the presentation that was given by Eskom Chair, but I'm still not convinced because I've been listening carefully to my colleagues asking questions, but it seems like Eskom is not coming very clear for us as this committee to be able to understand or to come to our level to understand, so that when we go to our constituencies, we must be able to explain to them thoroughly. The issue of, I think it's Honorable, there's Honorable who asked this question about the issue of the substations. What is the overall cost of replacing them? Because as he was saying that, he said that they are aging. And hopefully through those, there's not going to be through further municipal tariff increase. That's the other question that they want to. The second question will be, ESCOM, when it's been removing illegal connections in other areas, but they have not completely removed them. I can set that example. I'm staying in Matlosana. Kuma and Kanana, they are not paying services in the municipalities because they are being serviced, they are buying their electricity in ESCOM. And I can tell you that majority of them, they have stolen the electricity. So how is ESCOM dealing with those kind of areas? And then the other issue is going to be the issue of this issue that is a serious concern about the load reduction. How is the department going to continue working to reduce load reduction in areas which are not supplied by ESCOM? The other issue, Chair, that I want to ask, it's about the smart readers, smart meter reading. I can tell you now, what ESCOM is giving us is not honest in terms of making sure that they empower our SMMEs. My question is going to be, how much is one box per unit per house? How much is it? Why I'm asking this question, because a month ago there was a huge march, because in Matlosana they were trying to put those smart reading meters. So somebody picked up the SMME and tell the community that apparently one box it cost about close to 48,000. But we could not be clear, and the municipality could not answer those questions. So maybe ESCOM can help us, so that we must be able also to go and make our community understand the smart reader meter that is installed in the household, it costs this much. I think transparency is very much important, because one of my colleagues there said that we can't, our communities don't trust municipalities anymore. They don't trust councillors anymore, because they don't know that if somebody come and install in my house, so how much does he have percentage on top of what is being installed? What is it mean? What is like I'm getting a subsidy from the municipality? How much is the subsidy that the government is giving me, or the municipality is giving me, for that smart meter to be installed in my household? Thank you very much.
Department.
Chair, through you. So the costing and the replacement of the smart meters, like I've indicated, in not specifically to the load reduction, but for the first year in terms of the approval so far, the ESCOM board has approved 5.7 billion. That will include both smart meters and any infrastructure upgrade within that smart meter itself. But in terms of ring fencing just the load reduction areas, I've indicated that we will provide that feedback in writing to this committee around it. I think the issue around illegal connections and the number of illegal connections and the theft, again, Chair, part of the issue about introducing load reduction, like we've indicated, is that it is costing the country and the economy in terms of the replacement of these failed equipment. And unfortunately, the fiscus does not have an open-ended amount of money in terms of continuously replacing failed equipment due to overloading or illegal connections, etc. And in our last financial year results that we published, we've indicated that in terms of the non-technical losses, we've seen an increase from 13.5 terawatt hours the previous year to 14.7 terawatt hours the last financial year. And if we do not address this problem, I think as a country, we would be sitting with a major problem in terms of not having the ability and the affordability to have an energy market in terms of where we can all participate. So illegal connections is certainly a major issue that we all need to continuously address. And of course, we're saying to it, it's a multi-pronged approach, and ESCOM themselves, or even the municipalities, for that case, will not be able to do it themselves. We do need the cooperation of everyone, but we also need to show to our communities the benefits that they get in terms of the improvement in their lives as we move forward itself. The issue around the load reduction in areas not in ESCOM, again, I've highlighted this to previous committee members that the minister has been engaging the municipalities, and in due time, he would have a similar media briefing and probably a similar session in terms of this particular portfolio committee itself. The issue around smart meters and how much it costs per household, I've again indicated that I know some of these numbers off my head, but at the risk of, breaking whatever laws there might be or regulations itself, we would provide what we can in writing if it is not confidential and we are not breaking any rules in terms of propriety issues around particular manufacturers itself, because we've indicated in terms of the current numbers of smart meters we have stock in hand. Beside then the issue around then meeting the load reduction target for 2026 and going out in open tender. We also have the issue of the approval by board for the first year of the 6.2 million meters. And in terms of that, we are seeking the approval from our IFC to go out on tender. And if I then make that information available, because I do know or understand that some of this information is available to the media, etc., that I will probably be contravening some or other act, and I don't want to be in contravention of that. So via the appropriate governance, whatever information we can make, we will certainly make that available. But what I can say to you is, without breaking any rules or laws, that if you are paying 48,000 rands per household, that's a travesty in most simple words itself. And from an ESCOM perspective, we are nowhere near that amount itself. In fact, with the risk of being rude, I think it's a ludicrous amount if 48,000 rands is paid for a smart meter in a particular household without understanding the full scope of work other than just for a smart meter. So from an ESCOM perspective, again, in terms of compliance, of being open and transparent and meeting the requirements of our 1039, meeting the PFMA requirements and meeting national treasury requirements. It is open and transparent. We are supporting local industry itself. We want production facilities within our country so that we can develop our local economies, etc. And any supplier that are going to be contracted will need to meet the DTI requirements itself. Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if my colleague from DEE, Dr. Kubashni, wants to add anything around the Munich or anything else.
Chairperson, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think, on the issue with the municipalities, it's a broader EDI reform discussion that we will be having with the portfolio committee in the next few coming weeks. And I think, it is at this juncture that we can discuss how we are dealing with stabilizing municipalities and trying to get the municipalities to address some of their structural issues. And like the minister has indicated, we will come back with the program on the municipalities. Thank you.
Honorable Somba, are you answered or do you still have another question?
No, Chair, it's okay. I will wait for we'll read again. They say they will send us the written report that state all the things that we asked them. Then now maybe I will take it from there. Thank you very much. For now, I'm okay.
Okay. Honorable Fassi.
Very much, President, and allow me to also appreciate the presentation from Eskom and the team. I think it's important to say, even as the ANC, we welcome the fact that we've made significant progress in terms of reducing load shedding. But of course, now we need to work on a plan to reduce load reduction. And of course, that's quite an important point because, and I think it was said earlier by Mr. Reedy, that consumers and our people, obviously, for them, whether it's load shedding or load reduction, they experience the same output, which is a lack of energy excess. And so that's something that is quite an important point. So my first question, Chair, is that load reduction also occurs due to aging distribution infrastructure and substations which are unable to meet higher levels of demand due to that lower capacity of substations, but also due to a lack of maintenance. What is the plan to increase distribution capacity in areas that have been supplied by Eskom? You mentioned that, but also those areas not supplied by Eskom. And I'm talking specifically around maintenance and specifically around distribution infrastructure that's aged.
Chair, in terms of the aging infrastructure or the lack of maintenance, certainly from an Eskom perspective, I can't talk for the municipalities. We do have what we call a life cycle plan for the maintenance of our infrastructure. These are tracked on a weekly and monthly basis in terms of what we call a maintenance health index. And we do track the investment or the spending in terms of those maintenance. So from a distribution infrastructure point of view, specifically for Eskom, I can assure the committee that we as Eskom are on track around our life cycle plan when it comes to the maintenance of our infrastructure itself. With respect to increasing capacity, again, in the different networks, we do have in certain areas where we do have constraints and we do have projects that are running over multiple years in terms of then increasing that capacity within those areas so that we don't constrain our service delivery or the economic activities within those areas. In addition to that, we have, like we've been saying, even though it is in its infancy stage, we have been looking at alternative technology in addressing some of these constrained areas so that we can increase the capacity. I think what comes to mind, and I know that I haven't seen the AG report, but the questions about microgrids, we have already in mind, and again, I stand to be corrected with a number, but we have actually installed more than 70 microgrids throughout the country in supporting the issue about increasing capacity in the different areas. But like I've indicated, when we have a constraint in terms of this capacity, we look at the total picture and evaluate different alternatives in how we can solve that capacity issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Reedy. On that total picture, You mentioned a number of different provinces, and I need to understand the rolling out of this program. Is it happening in all of the provinces at the same time? Is it possible to do that? And secondly, is it possible to do it at speed? What I'm trying to get to effectively, Mr. Reedy, is how we hold this process accountable. In fact, Chairperson, I want to propose that we get monthly reports on the progress of this particular program of load reduction. Number one, empowers us as MPs to give feedback to our people, but number two, it also should, in theory, push this process. So I want to know the actual bigger picture that you've spoken about. Can it be done in all provinces at the same time? But can we also do it at pace and in monthly reports? Back to you.
Thank you, Honourable Fafi. Certainly, we are rolling the plan throughout the country. So it is being run in parallel in each province. In each of the province, we have what we call zones and sectors. And if we go to the granular level, customer network centers. So this program is being run in each of those customer network centers. We have a program management office at a national level, and then at each of the provinces, we have the provincial program offices that then monitor this program. We do have a dashboard that we are utilizing in terms of tracking the implementation and monitoring the program itself. So when we look at the program at a granular level, part of those is actually ensuring that if we are saying that we're going to do, by way of example, say 5,000 connections or replacement of smart meters within a particular feeder, part of the exercise as project management is to ensure for that 5,000 connections that we have the resources in terms of labor, we have the vehicles, and then we have the materials to be able to deliver that 5,000 itself. So we do have a dashboard, but we're continuously looking in terms of how we improve that dashboard. But internal to ESCOM, we are monitoring this on a weekly basis, and we can certainly, via, again, the appropriate channels, governance channels, provide the committee with a monthly report against this plan in eliminating the load reduction.
Thank you. We would appreciate that, because that dashboard is quite important for us to also track and see the pace at which it's moving in different parts of the country. And I'm glad that it is, in fact, being traced at that level. My next question is about the National Treasury allocation that's for the free basic electricity grant. How much is spent every year, Mr. Reedy, if you're aware?
So, sorry, I missed that, Honourable Fafi.
So I'm talking about the National Treasury grant that's allocated to the free basic electricity for indigent households. How much is spent every year nationally?
I don't have that number because, again, because it's a grant itself.
Okay, Mr. Reedy, let me assist you. I don't know, Kubeshni, if you know. What I'm trying to confirm is and understand that the last I checked, it was, I think, is it 10 million? If I'm correct, that's been allocated from National Treasury. Maybe Kubeshni can correct us. And I recently read, and that's what I want to confirm, that only 2 million of that 10 million is being spent, which of course is only 20%. Can I just get some feedback from Ms. Govender on that one? Sorry, I got your surname wrong, Kubeshni. I don't know why I thought your surname was Govender. My apologies.
No, so no problem. So, Honourable Member Asan, that is the number that also that has been bandied about. I have not personally checked that number, but National Treasury can confirm. But that is the number that the department also references when we try to say that the people that really need this, the money is not actually going to the people, and it's not reaching indigenous households, and the issues of the registers, and the challenges experienced in getting to that number every year is what is being discussed. So it is true, Honourable Member, that indeed, less than a quarter of the indigent households actually receive the grant that is being allocated from National Treasury. And it is around that order of 10. Thank you.
Thank you. So that then brings in the next question, and I think, Chair, and to the Portfolio Committee, I think we're going to need another whole meeting to deal with this. Because it's not just an issue of money. There is money, it's just not being spent by municipalities, and that is not an ESCOM issue. That, in fact, is a municipal issue that we need to zero in on. So I'm just interested to know, are there any MOAs or MOUs with municipalities? How often do we follow up? Is there a process that we can assist in to almost support municipalities to spend the money that is there, that is direly needed by indigent households? I don't know, this is to both ESCOM and the department.
To you, Chair, the Honourable Member. So in terms, just a correction, in terms of the order of magnitude for the free basic electricity, it is actually roughly about 12 billion itself. So it's not millions, it's in fact billions itself. Unfortunately, we do rely, as I've highlighted in terms of the process earlier, in where we get the indigent register from the municipalities, and through that application then provide the 50 kilowatts to the numbers that are indicated in that list itself. But there is always an opportunity in terms of improving that process itself. In terms of the way this grant is formed and what was previously explained to myself, is because this is in terms of a form of a grant, as much as we say it is towards free basic electricity, my understanding, and I co-chair the NECOM working group for asset management infrastructure, or advanced metering infrastructure and smart metering, is the way it was explained to us is that as much as it is a grant, the municipalities are not obliged in terms of then spending that grant that is allocated to them towards the free basic electricity. There is some or other provision, I can't think of the technical term now, in terms of where they're allowed to then utilize the grant that's provided to them in terms of other requirements. Thanks, Chair.
I think Mr. Reedy got muted, or I lost audio.
Just to reiterate, Honourable Member, Colin Reddy was discussing, the very same comments that I'm making, that, although the grants are in the order of 10 billion to 12 billion, it is not reaching the indigent households. There is certain measures where the municipality actually use the grants for other services, and this talks to the broader reforms that we need to do in the electricity distribution industry, and I think when we have this discussion in the next coming weeks, that we highlight and look at the solution to improving those structural challenges that we find at the municipalities. So this is just one of the issues that we are facing at the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Krishna. And there's a last point, Chair, that I think it's fundamental to make. And it's very important that we correct this notion, particularly because we're a parliamentary portfolio committee, particularly because this meeting is broadcast live, and very importantly also because we have members of the media who listen in and who obviously report on different points of our work. And that notion is around tender processes. It must be dealt with, and I think it's very important. The first important point is that there's data protection in this country under the POPI Act. The but there's also business propriety protection. And we can't actually undermine this thing. Coca-Cola doesn't publish its recipe for a reason. I mean, imagine if it did. In order for us to protect investment, to create competitive business environments, but ultimately create economic growth, we must create an environment in which people who are able to provide services to the state can do so in some level of safety. And that's very, very important, because the question we should be asking, Chair, is how do we ensure that those who do tender and provide services to different governmental organizations and different governmental entities, how do we ensure maximum service delivery? How do we ensure maximum output for our people? But it's also critical, and this is why I must make the point, that members of parliament cannot, and in fact do not, involve themselves in tender processes. Firstly, because it's to prevent corruption and malfeasance. The very same corruption that has resulted in the crisis that Eskom faces today, and that a number of different entities face today, is precisely because members of parliament and other politicians put their hands in tender processes that they had no business being in. And so that is the first point of protection against corruption, and we must call a spade a spade. That's the first thing. The second thing is going to be causing a conflict of interest, and it will give an unfair advantage to their friends, their family members, etc., etc. And so, in fact, Chair, we have a duty to protect Eskom and a duty to protect the state, and ultimately our people who are sitting with load reduction, load shedding, whatever you want to call it, who are struggling on a daily basis, who are barely making ends meet, whose livelihoods are attacked. And then there are politicians who want to think that they can use particular platforms such as this to further their own processes on tenders. So I wanted to call a spade on that, Chairperson. And then the last point I'm going to make, it must be said, there is a reason why there is a separation of powers. Our job is not to put our hands in tender processes. Our job is to ensure that Eskom actually delivers on what it does. And that is why I spoke about maximum service delivery and maximum output to our people. So I think it must be corrected in this meeting that our job is not to involve ourselves in tender processes. And if there's any member of parliament who thinks that's okay, we will take them on, not only here, but also in a court system. Chair, I'm going to close with that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Fasia. Any comment, Department, on this? The last speaker.
Chair, maybe to be clear, I don't need a response from Eskom or from the department. In fact, we're trying to protect them from the very charlatans who want to effectively use state resources for their own personal gain. So there's no need for Eskom or the department to respond. It was just an important point to make that some of us are trying to fight against corruption in the system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Fasia. Can I check from other honorable members that is there any other question that they would love to ask now that there's still time? They might ask from the input that has been given when questions are being asked by other members. I'll look for hands. Honorable Chabile.
Thanks a lot, Chair, for the opportunity. One, I just wanted to maybe do a recap on the questions. The aspect of the financial impact, one is we spoke about the fact that there is this particular indigent grant. One is the question of the indigent grant comes out because Eskom receives the income on behalf of indigent, not the other way around. They're not actually paying. You know, the government pays on behalf of indigent households, and Eskom receives a tariff payment for an indigent grant in respect to that. So it's actually the other way around. Eskom does not lose money when it actually services our indigent communities as well as affected communities. It actually receives a benefit because the electricity that they are dispensing is being paid for by an indigent grant. So I want to know, you did mention that there is about 12 billion that is dispensed for indigent grant. What does that mean?
So, Honourable Member, so the grant is actually issued to the municipalities and not directly to Eskom. So I need to correct that. So what actually happens is the municipalities make an application as part of their grants in terms of requesting funds for providing FBE to the communities, to the indigenous communities. And based in terms of the list that we receive from them, those communities are then given a voucher, which then is equivalent to the 50 kilowatt. I think what we are indicating, and part of the discussion that we hear today and the contributions from the committee members, is ideally this 12 billion that is made available to the municipalities in terms of the 2.1 million that we've identified, and I think you've correctly indicated that it's probably greater than the 2.1 million that are indigent itself, that those monies should actually, in terms of the smart meters, it provides us an advantage where we don't need to use this manual system. Ideally, that grant should come directly to Eskom in terms of where we can program those meters, not for every month for someone to apply for that FBE, but program that automatically so that that particular indigent customer can get that money automatically as we move forward in terms of our smart meter rollout itself. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The question of this, remember, as I said to you, your electricity is based on recoverable tariff, which means even if Eskom is giving municipalities, these municipalities are still paying back to Eskom in respect to the recoverable tariff. So Eskom does not lose any money in any point when they are doing
Jefferson, can I please call an order?
On the indigent grant.
Can I please call a point of order?
Honorable Fasia, can you hold on your point of order?
Thanks.
You know, I am not. Can you hold it? Could you hold it? You know, I am one person that doesn't want anyone to make a point of order. Everybody is free to speak, but you must mind the time when Honorable Ntshabeleng, for follow-ups and checkups, it's 3 minutes. So,
okay. Chair, we all have follow-ups. We've all been given opportunities to speak, Chair. It's only fair now that you close the session. Otherwise, I also have follow-ups. Other honorable members have follow-ups, Chair. You must treat us all equally. Otherwise, we're going to have challenges, Chair. It's really unfair.
Honorable Fasia, do you also have a follow-up? I will give you.
Chair, I have an order to call, and that's why I want you to entertain the order first.
So please hold on there. Get into the conclusion, and Honorable Ntshabeleng.
Thanks a lot, Chair. On the finalization of this thing, as we're saying about
I called an order. I'm asking you to please listen to the order, Chairperson. Because the order is fundamental to what's
being disrespected now. No, Fasia is not special in any way for her to be interrupting the session.
Neither you, Honorable Ntshabeleng.
No, we're not going to accept this thing because she's been very disruptive. She's been very disorderly. We have been extremely respectful.
The challenge is that the shoe fits that you feel that you need to actually respond to the issue at hand.
We are being respectful, but she's been
Honorable
very
Ntshabeleng, that you feel the need to respond in this manner.
No, you're not
I'm as shocked as you by the disrespect.
Whatever you say doesn't make any sense.
I have an order to call. Please, can my order be entertained?
In this case, we speak as members of the committee. You can't do that to me. You don't do that to the chair.
Can you please try to make this meeting not to be disturbed? Honorable
Chair, you let Fasia interrupt me when I'm speaking.
Honorable Fasia, I am the chairperson. I'm trying to intervene on this. I requested Honorable Fasia to hold it on. Please, I'm requesting you to finalize it and conclude it.
I was finalizing, Chair. Can I finalize, please?
Give other members if there are any follow-ups from them.
I am doing the final follow-up as you allocated me 3 minutes, Chair. Thank you. The reason I brought this thing up on the Eskom issue with regards to the indigent grant part of it is, one is, if Eskom is receiving indigent and still declaring that is actually getting profits, what do you call it, profits, it means that there is a huge crisis around the financial model within Eskom, because we are told that you have to do recovery, but at the same time, there's a lot of money that Eskom is receiving on the tariff side of it, which is tariff recovery, right, which is on a paid by basis. Eskom does not lose money on any level except when they have done their own accounting inaccuracies. But on the issue of the indigent grant, which we really need to be specific and fair about, is there's a lot of money dispersed out from the public purse into municipalities and then back to Eskom in respect to honoring the indigent grant. And I think we need a special session where we can get into the financial model of it and look at where the discrepancies are, because our people are not receiving indigent grant subsidy. A lot of households are still paying a prepaid flat fee without receiving an indigent portion of it, which means there is those discrepancies that were even published before in the papers that Eskom has been charging over, and there has been monies that were supposed to be referred back and reimbursed back to customers. That's an issue I think we're not going to be able to attend to now, but it's something that we need to put on the table to say, at the financial model of Eskom, certain discrepancies do exist. One particularly issue is the cost of electricity, especially on indigent side of it. They are not receiving the grants and they are not receiving the benefits of the grant. And that's a point I wanted to raise. Yeah, I think I'm covered on that one.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Can I check whether there are any other members that have got questions for those minutes that are left? No one? Thank you very much. Let me then, therefore, thank the department and also Eskom that has come to present to us the issue of the load reduction, which most of us didn't understand it and made some clarity. Remember, department, you promised to do some written responses to other members, and I can quote those members. The first one was Honorable Trink, and also the second one was Honorable Somba, and also other honorable members that have had questions that were not answered promptly and in terms of the questions that they have asked. So I will plead the department to answer those questions and do the written questions or a written response via the secretary, and the secretary definitely will take those responses to the committee. Otherwise, thanks ever so much for the department and also Eskom once more, and you are excused because we are going to deal with the in-committee issues.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next item, honorable members, is minutes. The first set of minutes, honorable members. Can we request honorable?
Chair, it's Lee speaking. Rico won't be able to do that right now. His laptop died because they had electricity issues at his house. So I don't think we'll be doing that now. I can just make the announcements for next week's meetings. I think we can hold over the minutes.
Excuse me, don't you have those minutes with you so as to be flighted? Because Arico sent the minutes to us.
Okay, I'll just check 1 moment.
Especially minutes deferred for quite a long time, and we have lots and lots of, unless you are unable to flight them. Lou?
Hi, Chair. No, I don't have them.
You don't have them?
No, I don't have the minutes.
I won't be able to send them to you now. Honorable members, we'll definitely have to defer the issue of minutes. But I understand that the minutes were sent to us as honorable members, and it's 2 sets of minutes. The last one is the 15th and the 16th meeting. So we were about to adopt them, and as a true reflection of the day that we had our meetings. But nevertheless, what we can do, we can defer them, but we'll definitely have to do them. Thank you ever so much, Lee. Otherwise, let's adjourn the meeting and then defer.
Okay, can I just announce that next week there will be the 2 meetings that we're having. It will both be virtual. So on the 27th, Tuesday the 27th, we're meeting jointly with the Portfolio Committee on Minerals and Petroleum Resources to consider the BRRR. And then on Wednesday, we'll be meeting with on the updated INAP program. But they'll both be virtual.
Okay, the last announcement is that we are invited by NNR. They are opening their offices on the 30th. I requested the secretary to check those that that will be available, and also those are able to drive themselves to the offices of the NNR in Milnati. So I hope that the secretary will also prepare for that. Otherwise, the meeting has adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Eskom and Department.
They are gone already. Thank you. They are gone already. Thank you, Honorable Pat.